Good evening. Good evening, everybody, and I'm glad you're here. The Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Board of Trustees is now convened in a board work session on Monday, January 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the boardroom of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center located at 10300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, for the purpose of reviewing that portion of the Thursday, January 12th, 2023 regular board meeting agenda designated as action items and to hear designated reports and recognitions posted in the meeting notice as required by Texas law. I want to welcome the members of our audience and television viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Cypress-Fairbanks Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals, listen to reports, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. The meeting is open to all who wish to attend and to hear the matters discussed. Audience members may not participate in the meeting outside the designated agenda item for citizen participation or public comment. Disruption of the meeting by any person, including the audience, is inappropriate and will be addressed by the board president or the board's counsel as a meeting parliamentarian. Continued or repeated disruption of any board meeting by words or actions may result in removal or loss of the privilege to attend the meeting. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings are airing live on the district website. They will also be available as video on demand on the district website following tonight's meeting. For the video to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off in silent mode. So if everybody would check and turn off their cell phone, it'd be most appreciated. However, if you wanted to stay attuned to the game when it comes on, that's perfectly okay too. What game, right? Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. And tonight, we do not have any elected officials. We have no Girl Scouts, and we also have no Boy Scouts with us this evening. At each open meeting of the board, patrons who have registered in accordance with the procedures established by BED regulation may address the board during the designated agenda comments period prior to the board's consideration of action on the item. Unless the agenda is otherwise arranged by the board president during the meeting, agenda comments will generally be taken prior to each agenda item. The invocation, pledge of allegiance, vision and mission statement, remarks and recognitions, board comments, and citizen participation portions of the agenda will be presented at the regular board meeting on Thursday, January 12th, 2023. For detailed information and instructions on registering to speak under agenda comments, please go to the district website at www.cfisd.net. Patrons who have registered to speak this evening may see the order of names listed on the screens to your right and to your left. Before your name is called, please move forward and sit in one of the two reserved seats on the front row to my right. I believe we only have 59 individuals who have signed up to speak this evening. The board will now review the action items. During review of the following action items, any board member may remove one or more of these items, at which time these items will be addressed and voted on individually. The board will consider approving the minutes of the December 12th, 2022 regular board meeting. We have one speaker on this. The speaker is Jared Lee. So we do not have a speaker on this item tonight. So for the board, do we have any questions, comments on the board minutes? If not, may we move this to the consent agenda?
Yes, please.
3B, the board will consider approving attendance boundaries for elementary 58, 59, and middle school 20 and the modification of multiple attendance boundaries. Now, before we start, I just want to make an observation. Only the person who signed up may speak. So even if it's somebody out of your household, let's say a spouse, and the spouse can't make it, you are not permitted to speak on their behalf or in their stead. You have to be the person who signed up. The other comment I would make is we all have tremendous passion for being here to speak, particularly when it comes to zoning. We are all proud of the schools that we are going to be zoned to. I really don't want to hear comments about some other school not being worthy of a person out of your household. That's simply not appropriate. It's happened in the past. I've asked that we not do it. I think it's toned down. I think everybody understands the game rules. So we shall start. The first speaker is Carrie Job.
My name is...
And before you start, when the yellow light goes on, you have 30 seconds to wrap up. When the red light comes on, you have a few words to wrap up your conclusionary statement. But if you take more than a few words or a sentence or two, I'll interrupt and I'll say, please stop. And that's true not only for you, but for the 58 speakers who will come behind you. Okay, begin when you wish.
My name is Carrie Job. I have children entering second grade and kindergarten next year. Everyone says that kids are resilient, and that's true. But these kids have been resilient through extraordinary times. Whether it's a global pandemic or my kids watching their mom survive brain cancer. I stand here tonight to remind you that through it all, their schools, their classrooms, their communities built around them have been their safe havens, a source of stability and consistency. I ask that you please vote to keep kids with their existing communities where possible. Please vote yes to Phase 1 and Phase 2 of MAP 12.8 and vote now. Let's not ask our incoming kindergarten class to be resilient once again by having to start at a new school 2 years in a row because the vote here was postponed. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, are you ready? Our next speaker is Isabel Brodsky.
Happy New Year, board and committee and parents. I wanted to update you guys on some numbers I gave you in the past regarding Marvita and Town Lake, confirming that Phase 1 and Phase 2 of MAP 12.8 and Christy Geron's numbers are phenomenal. Based on the rates, the sales are plummeting. Not only that, they're reversing. People who are in escrow fell out of escrow, so Town Lake is not selling out fast. Marvita is doing very well. So if we can make room for Andre, for these new residents to come on in, it's imperative. And I feel like we're not so worried about Town Lake or Rennell after Phase 1. It seems like it's going to be a very slow-growing community. Thank you. And I gave paper to show the numbers.
There we go. We have two different microphones set up. So for speaker number 3, if you'll come to my right, audience left, and speaker number 4, go ahead and be ready to move up to the other speakers since we still have 57 speakers to go. I think this will be more efficient. So our next speaker is Shannon Viola.
Hello, I'm Shannon Viola, resident and parent. I'm here in opposition of the proposed rezoning for next year for Postma Elementary to Copeland Elementary. I've distributed an alternative plan that I feel meets the district's needs, but does not require RC 706 moving to Copeland, the fifth farthest elementary school from my house and farther away from my Stonegate community. I'd like to urge the district to think outside of the box when finding ways to utilize unpopulated schools and assist overpopulated schools. Instead of taking students away from their friends and teachers who they've grown to love, I think we should think about moving special programs, office spaces, and adding to existing schools. I think strategically addressing overpopulation could be done more preemptively, allowing for rezoned elementary and middle school students to finish out their time in the current building, similar to what's being done at the high school level. My desire is to be closer to my Stonegate neighbors, not farther away. I'd like to see the district decrease the frequency of boundary changes, not increase them. Thank you for your time and consideration, and happy Board Appreciation Month.
Our next speaker is Joseph Gonzalez.
Good evening. I'm an 8th grader at Splain Middle School, and I am here to oppose for Splain to be rezoned to Cy Falls. On November 14th, I visited Cy Ranch High School, and I met with counselors and teachers. I made my high school electives based on what Cy Ranch High School has to offer. During the last 2 years, I visited multiple Cy Ranch High School football games with friends and family. In October, I went to the Cy Ranch varsity game with my teammates and my coaches. The majority of my friends are zoned to Cy Ranch, and it would make a hard transition into high school. Please consider keeping Splain at Cy Ranch High School. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maria Gonzalez.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of Stonegate community. For my 8th grader, it was a very hard transition going from elementary school to middle school because of COVID. He didn't get a chance to tour the school, meet his teachers. Right now, it's also going to be challenging because we already visited the open house, and he did his high school electives based on what Cy Ranch has to offer. Also, I found out about the December 8th from my neighbors. As November 10th was emailed and message was sent to everyone, December 8th, there was no email or anything saying that Stonegate is going to be rezoned to Cy Ranch. Please consider keeping Splain kids going to Cy Ranch. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Astrid Azbetita Sawyer.
We, the parents of the kids on Zone 373 and 2173, are opposing the proposal of 12A. During the Christmas holiday, we walked the streets of our neighbors, getting all the parents aware of the 12A proposal. Knowing schools are the hearts of our community, and knowing Cy Ranch is part of our community, and knowing we're one of the communities that built Cy Ranch. We did not ask for a new proposal to be written based on fear and hate, the opposite. We generated a plan based on the considerations of your website with real numbers, not projections or uncertain data. We're an established community and voted for you to speak on our behalf and the behalf of our kids, the ones right here, not the kids in the future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Sawyer. No, number 7, Maria Azbeta.
I am against the 12A proposal. When I first heard about the rezoning, I was devastated and sad that I might not be able to go to the school I was planning to go to since I first moved to the community. I now realize that what I was afraid of might become reality. I also might not be able to go to school with my best friends, which leaves me with one single friend that I have. I am not good at making friends, so this will be a big disadvantage in my social life and mental health. I have also always wanted to join the Cy Ranch Chamber Choir. I have been wanting to join it since I first heard about it in sixth grade, planning very carefully how I would improve from that choir in the future. I'm hoping that you will not let this pass so I can be with my friends, so I can be in my choir, and so I can be a Cy Ranch Mustang. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Sawyer.
My name is Chris Sawyer. I was the one behind the scenes crunching the numbers for the Stonegate 19 proposal that many of you have been contacted about. In my analysis, I want to point out several things that I noticed. The passive projections do not match the current enrollment. One critical example that I found was RC Code 10. As of 12/15/22, according to the report produced by CFISD, there was only one student registered in CFISD K through 12. The 12-8 proposal shows 15, the passive projections show 16. Seeing the flaw in that data points out, and as you use the data, you can see that we don't fix anything. The data does not match the projections. There's a gap there. I urge y'all to step back, wait till the data does bear out. There's real data and we can move this one time. Don't move a bunch of kids. You've hit your objections with moving kids to Cy Woods and moving kids to Lingham Creek. That's relief for Bridgeland. That's relief for Cy Ranch. Leave it there for now. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jade Evans-Miles.
Good evening. My name is Jade Evans-Miles, and I'm an 8th grade student at Splain Middle School. I want to address the unnecessary and unwanted rezoning to be decided upon for Stonegate going from Cy Ranch to Cy Falls High School. As a student who has moved here 6 years ago, being zoned to the same schools, I've had my plan set out for me. Considering that the people and I who are currently in 8th grade going into 9th grade thinking that we knew where we'd be headed, given the circumstances that we didn't get to finish 5th grade the right way and didn't get to start 6th grade normally, it's only fair that we stay where we are due to the increasing need for stability within our mental health, our emotional safety, and our physical safeguard. Please reconsider your decision and have a great rest of your day.
Our next speaker is Carolyn Perovi.
Voting the 12-8 proposal is a clear message that you're in agreement with the statement said by Bridge Creek about Cy Springs, a message of fear and hate, not facts. These 127 Stonegate kids affected by the 12-8 proposal are not just a number. These kids are of a community that was affected by Harvey 6 years ago. These kids had to be rescued by rescue boats because of Harvey from their homes. 2.5 years later, their 5th grade year was cut short by the start of a pandemic. They missed their elementary school graduation, never said goodbye to their elementary school friends, and many of them missed their first year of middle school. These kids are currently in therapy for anxiety and depression due to the life-changing events they had to witness in their formative years. Now, due to hate and fear spewed by other communities, your team decides to once again disrupt our kids' lives and mess up everything right when they're making progress. I want this to be on record that whatever happens to our kids, it's on you. Whatever mental health decline they have, it's on you. They're struggling. You do not care if you vote for this. You don't care for what those kids have been through. I also want to be clear that this is 100% segregation being thinly veiled.
Please stop. Please stop. Thank you. Our next speaker is Sophia Parovi.
Hello, my name is Sophia Parovi, and I'm an 8th grade at Splain, and I'm one of the 127 kids whose lives are uprooting with this new rezoning change. Did you think about us kids when you decided to rezone Splain? Do you think about all the hardships we've already gone through, that Stonegate has gone through? Because obviously you didn't. Us kids have been through a lot, starting with Hurricane Harvey. A lot of houses in my neighborhood were flooded, so a lot of people had to be temporarily relocated from their homes as they were rebuilding their houses. Then in 5th grade, COVID hit, meaning I never got to finish my 5th grade year, I never had a 5th grade graduation, and I never got to say goodbye to many of my friends who ended up going to Arnold. Then I was online all of 6th grade, and I got social anxiety because of it. So basically, I had to re-enter 7th grade, knowing almost nobody with social anxiety, and that is extremely difficult because middle school is hard enough as it is. But I did make friends. I did, over the course of 2 years, and I've been planning on going to ranch for years now, and you guys have been shoving ranch down our throats with side-by-sides, with 4-year plans, with making friends, and now you're uprooting our lives once again. We are not a number, and you're taking away something that has been promised to us for years. Being a teenager is hard enough. Don't make it worse.
Our next speaker is Kelly Arlacon.
I'm speaking today urging the board to adopt the original 1110 proposal. The 1110 proposal accomplishes all of the administration's stated goals and also meets the stated considerations such as minimizing changes. The 12-8 proposal should not even be a consideration. This proposal was never officially announced to the public by the administration. Therefore, it appears that the administration and this board is trying to sneak it through so as to avoid public blowback. As the 12-8 proposal only came about after the Bridge Creek community stood at these podiums and verbally trashed Cy Springs, it is assumed that the board endorses the verbal abuse that the Bridge Creek community hurled at Cy Springs High School. 12-8 affects a far greater number of students when the goal is to minimize changes. It splits a middle school between 3 high schools, counter to stated goals, and does not provide any additional students for Springs, which 1110 does. Why then is this board and administration attempting to hide their actions from the community by failing to announce a new rezoning proposal and solicit proper feedback? We urge you to not just hear us, but to truly listen and act with integrity by adopting the 1110 proposal.
Our next speaker is Erica Moore.
I am representing many voices from Stonegate today. We are disheartened by the new December 8th proposal that many Stonegate residents are still not aware of. We met 4 times over the holiday break to come up with the plan. We handed out flyers, contacted neighbors to let them know about this new updated proposal, and even tried to come up with the new proposal that never saw the light of day. We urge you to say no to December 8th and go back to the original November 10th proposal that you created that keeps Stonegate at Ranch. When we moved into Stonegate 18 years ago, it was one of the first master planned communities in this area, and we are tired of always being the sacrificial lamb. Whenever there is movement in Cy-Fair, we get sacrificed, having to move to different schools. Bridge Creek and Avalon, on December 8th, Bridge Creek made some despairing remarks of why they did not want to attend Cy Springs. Their only claim was fear and hate. If you say yes to December 8th, you are supporting those claims. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kelly Sloan.
My name is Kelly Sloan, and I have an 8th grader at Spillane Middle School. I am surprised at how little regard Cy-Fair ISD has for my Stonegate community. Per the zoning, my daughter has attended 2 remote campuses, over 290 and down a feeder, of which 80% of its population goes to a completely different school. She finally establishes herself at Spillane, prepares for a future at Cy Ranch, only to have that rug pulled out from underneath her with 12-8's boundary proposal. Spillane will now feed 3 high schools. 3! We just attended electives night at Ranch and toured the school. Shuffling my community like a chess piece for the district is not acceptable. You permitted hate and fear arguments by Bridge Creek. They came in here, they threw a temper tantrum, said they didn't want to go to Cy Springs, which is less than a mile away from their community. By permitting that, you have now allowed hate and fear speech to become our arguments too. We presented a plan which you didn't even want to look at.
Please wrap up.
Bridge Creek did not vote you in. They're less than 2 years old.
stop.
We did.
Please
act
stop.
on behalf of your voters.
Please stop. Our next
My name is Avery Sloan, and I am an 8th grader at Spillane Middle School and one of the many students that are being affected by the 12-8 rezoning. I have always suffered with self-doubt. While it is still affecting me today, it has made me more vulnerable about the 12-8 rezoning because Cy Ranch has helped me in many ways. Its opportunities have made me more self-aware, more confident, a harder worker, and try to become the person I would like to be in the future. It has been my dream school for the past 3 years. I have worked my butt off in school just for me to be a part of Cy Ranch. I have put a lot of effort into my grades, learning how to be a musician in choir, and perfecting my golf swing for Cy Ranch. All that work was just for these opportunities in Cy Ranch. It is currently being taken away from me as we speak because of this rezoning. It is like getting a winning lottery ticket and someone taking that ticket away from you. Stonegate has always been that one neighborhood that gets moved around to suit your needs. We have never truly complained about it, but now we are speaking up, and you know why. I have recently discovered that I have a fear of public speaking, but I'm standing here way out of my comfort zone to prove that this was an ignorant decision. Someone's got to say it, but you clearly aren't doing your job right. Your main priority as a school board member should be putting the students first, but instead you're trying to make yourselves look good. You could be ruining someone's life, crushing a dream, but you are obviously too heartless to see that. And if you feel insulted, I am sorry, but that is the cold, hard truth. You know that the right decision is 11-10, so make that decision. The only thing I won't get over is how you made my parents feel defeated.
Sweetheart, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate you coming up.
So before the next speaker comes up, when the yellow light comes on, you have 30 seconds to wrap up. Since there's so many speakers, everybody only has 1 minute. When the red light comes on, you have just a few words that you can use to wrap up, but if you keep going, you really need to stop. Our next speaker is Jamone Moore.
Thank you. I'm a numbers guy. So as of 11/10, my son had access to 98% graduation rate, which is the top 5% in Texas. My son had access to a testing rank of the top 5% in Texas, top 1% math proficiency, top 5% reading proficiency was all given to him as of 11/8, okay? Or, sorry, 11/10 rather. On 12/8, my son now has access to 90% graduation rate, top 50%, top 30% in testing, 61% in math proficiency, and top 30% in reading. So my son went from having opportunity to be excellent at a school that he was zoned to having the opportunity taken away from him for no reason and no fault of his own. Please go back to 11/10. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Steve Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Board, for hearing me. So I watched all the board presentations, the 11-14, the 12-8, the 12-12. And one thing that I took out from this was 11-14, when the school district originally proposed their proposal, there were so many compliments given to the district for their hard work, for their thoroughness, and for the ability that these numbers basically met the district's needs, and the rezoning plan met the district's needs in filling the students across all the schools. I mean, I'm not going to repeat the same things that were said about the Bridge Creek residents. Everybody knows that happens. Everybody here was looking at that. But we need to do a better job in taking the district's initial proposal, which was well thought out, and we don't need to make short, quick, spur-of-the-moment decisions about 12-8 like 12-8 did. You need to think this through very, very carefully because it affects a lot of students, and 12-8 disrupt way more students than the district's initial proposal does. So my urging you is to think through this very carefully. Don't make such a rash decision and vote down 12-8.
Our next speaker is Stephen Sloan.
I live in Stonegate, and you cannot vote yes to 12-8 proposal. This proposal was a knee-jerk reaction based on fear and hate that you're buying into if you vote yes to the 12-8 proposal. You can't say that a school is bad, but if you approve this proposal, that's exactly what every one of you are admitting to. I work for a developer, and I've looked over all of your numbers, and your numbers are wrong. You're basing your decision based on a bunch of what might be's and not actuality right here. The only vote that needs to be had is a yes to the 11-10 proposal that you all put together and were in total agreement with. Stonegate voted you onto this board, not Bridge Creek. If you vote yes to the 12-8 proposal, we will flood the charter schools. We will make it our own mission that none of you will ever be on this board again. You have officially woken the masses, as you can see. Now it's time for you to step up, make the right decision, and vote yes on 11-10.
Amen, brother.
Our next speaker is Lena Campbell.
Good evening. My name is Lena Campbell, and my daughter's a 7th grader at Spillane Middle School. You know everything about the whole Bridge Creek thing. They try to get themselves rezoned out of fear and hate. And my question is, are you accepting this as your position of fear and hate? We've received zero communication as parents and students. That's why we're so crazy about this. We are now being pushed because of 27 kids who have been around for 2 whole years, and instead of 127 kids who have been around since 1999 in an established community. Should your rezoning unfortunately happen, as you know, we're considering a charter school because we want a top school. Now, we hope that the board continues to represent the interests that we are looking for so we can continue to support the current board at the next election. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Laura Campbell.
Good evening. My name is Laura Campbell, and I'm a 7th grader at Spillane Middle School. I have been looking forward to attend Cy Ranch since I was rezoned at Lampkin Elementary. Now I feel like all of this has been taken away from me. Starting high school and knowing almost no one, again, is just a nightmare to me, as if I had moved to another city. I was already rezoned to a different middle school, and now I'm being rezoned to another high school. Why do you have to do this to me? It was a dream of mine to join the Cy Ranch wrestling team with my friends from Jiu-Jitsu. Now I feel that's gone. I'm a face, not a number. I want to go to school with my friends. Just please, leave us alone. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Drew Roberson.
I'd like to preface this by saying this pertains to the 12-8 proposal as it relates to Elementary School 59, Ramel, post mine, Andre, and not the high school conversation. I'd like to thank the committee and the board for their working willingness to listen to community input and for the pragmatic changes they have made since November 14th to arrive at the proposal currently being considered. However, there's been talk of postponing any discussion of plans for the 2024 school year until next year. The last 2 months have been a lot of work and a roller coaster of emotions for those of us working on it. It's unkind to put parents and students through another year of uncertainty over where our kids will attend school in 2024. Our children are not oblivious to these conversations, and this instability is likely to impact their education and emotional development. Furthermore, while the number of children under the age of 5 is low in Section 274A, there are a handful of families impacted as such. You put them in a position of starting kindergarten at Rennell in 2023 with the specter of moving for 2024 school year looming in the back of their minds. There's no reason to do this. The work has been done by the committee, and the current proposal meets the needs of Rennell, Postman, Andre, along with these respective communities affected. Specifically, the board can allow Town Lake Section 274A and Canyon Lake Section 697A to put this conversation behind us. Please don't make us wonder for another year when you can settle this on Thursday.
Our next speaker is Tracy Roberson.
Hello, my name is Tracy Robertson. Since you have heard a lot from me already in the past, I'm going to read you a letter written by my daughter, Olivia. She is right over here with me tonight with my other daughter, Lucy. She turns 8 on Thursday and is in 2nd grade at Rennell. She'll be in 4th grade when Phase 2 could possibly go into effect. Dear School Board, my name is Olivia Robertson, and I'm a Rennell Red Hawk. My parents said I might have to go to a new school in 2 years. I love my school, teachers, and friends. The teachers and principal are great and keep us safe. I love going to recess every day with my friends. I never want to leave my school because I love it so much. Please let me stay at my school until I go to middle school. From Olivia. I wanted to share her words just to show a real-life example of a child's point of view. We tried to keep her from even knowing about this, but unfortunately, frequent board meetings and conversations between her dad and I made it hard to keep quiet. We as parents and our kids want peace of mind. We do not want to have to go through another year of not knowing where our kids will end their elementary careers. Please do not postpone a decision on Phase 2. Thank you for your time and for all of your work on this.
Our next speaker is Renee Seymour.
Renee Seymour. As a parent of 2 students in the Cypress School Districts, one in high school, one an 8th grader at Spillane, I'm speaking on behalf of my son who has a basketball game tonight for Spillane Middle School. My son is currently in U.S. history where he is learning to speak his part. He wants to know why the new proposal was submitted without everyone being aware of it. He was aware of the 1110 proposal, and then the 12-8 proposal came in, and he was not, and I was not notified by the board of this change. I'm asking you to consider leaving those students at Spillane, go ahead and continue on to Cy Ranch as planned. These students have been through COVID as well as many other hardships. Moving them now would put them in a position where they're having to learn how to make new friends at a new school at a time where they've already been through so much. Again, I urge you to consider keeping the proposal for 1110.
Our next speaker is Jared Lee.
Good evening. My name is Jared Lee, and I have 2 students at Rennell Elementary in 1st and 3rd grades. Our community is built around Rennell, and redistribution would be devastating for the community and for our students. I understand how devastating change can be because I have a daughter with autism. We spent many years establishing relationships with staff members at Rennell who allow her to be her whole self. And I'm only one of hundreds, but I'm here advocating for limited change, not only for special needs population, but for all students who may be affected by this, by this change. I implore you not to delay the decision and vote yes to both the first and second phase of the 12-8 proposal relative to the elementary schools to provide our students with the stability they deserve and allow parents to have the certainty on where their kids will be going to school. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to the ISD.
Our next speaker is Sean Joyner.
Good evening.
As I stand here again today, I am a Stonegate concerned parent. My feelings are mutual to my community as we stand here strong together. I'm proud of my unforeseen kids to speak their mind right after me, but please vote yes to the 1110 proposal. And vote now. That's all I have to say.
Our next speaker is Cleveland Lane Jr.
Greetings, everyone. I want to ask you to make sure you vote for 1110 and not for 12A proposal. Go with your first mind. It achieves the goals that you set forth as a committee and as far as attendance and logistics. Don't make us the joystick community. For each one of the changes that have happened in the past, you've moved Stonegate along with those lines. We are a community of diverse people, and we, as you can see here, we're willing to work together to make this situation work. So please stick with us and let us stay together from the point of middle school to high school, and let our kids continue to play together the same way your kids did too. I'm gonna keep it short. I just want to say make sure you vote yes to 1110, no to 12-8.
Our next speaker is Cassidy Staggers.
Good evening, board members. I'm here to urge you to say yes to the November 10 proposal and no to the December 8 proposal. The December 8 proposal was born of parent fear and hatred towards students in our district, and the consideration of this proposal condones bullying and is setting a precedent that parental and student bullying is an acceptable way to achieve a desired outcome. The members of RC 373 and 2173, also known as Stonegate, followed the board's guidelines in drafting a new proposal, which was developed with community and student legacy in mind, which the administration chose not to share with the board. Looking at the numbers, only 26 eighth graders would be affected by the November 10 proposal and 127 eighth grade students affected by the December 8 proposal. These numbers are real students. They're not imaginary numbers from PASA. And I personally was displaced as an eighth grader due to no fault of my own, and I can assure you that 2 decades later, it still affects me. It was very difficult. So again, I urge you to approve the November 10 proposal. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jeremy Staggers.
I'm an 8th grade student at Spillane, and I'm a member of the Stonegate community asking you to vote for the original 1110 proposal. While at Burks Elementary, I was persecuted from 1st to 5th grade by many students. When I graduated, I went to Spillane, and they did not. For the first time, I was actually happy at school and have thrived. Under the new 12-8 proposal, you are asking me to rejoin those students who made school a legitimate danger for me. I joined the orchestra program at Spillane. On November 15th, we had a side-by-side event at Cy Ranch, and after meeting the students and director, I was excited by the opportunity to join the ranch orchestra. I've been feeling peace about going to high school until hearing that might be changing. This change is unnecessary. You do not need to displace us. The original 1110 proposal displaces fewer kids. On behalf of the hundreds of other Spillane students whose concerns I hear every day in the halls at school, I'm asking you to adopt the 1110 proposal, as it affects the fewest number of students while still achieving your stated goals. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maria Pate.
I do not agree with the alt relief proposal to rezone Hidden Arbor from Keith Elementary to A. Robeson. 61% of the submissions as of the previous working session for the alt relief proposal were from the Keith to the A. Rob change. You asked for community feedback. What are your comments to these many submissions? Please explore the alternatives we've provided. Utilization numbers trend down for Keith and the other Fairfield schools within the next 5 to 10 years. Dunham Point will soon have its own elementary. This is temporary. The distance is a problem. I emailed many of you maps with drive times. This change would zone our neighborhood to an elementary that is triple the drive time. We have a concern for safety. Our drive options are a windy 2-lane back road or an unprotected left turn at a 4-lane intersection. That's hard for me. I don't drive a school bus responsible for many children. All while we would pass the villages of Cypress Lake buses on their way to Keith. Do not compromise safety for a pretty map. Allow Hidden Arbor to stay zoned to Keith. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gregory Melton.
This is for my daughter, who asked me, why do so many people dislike Cy Springs? I understand that school zoning can be a topic that yields a multitude of emotions. I've watched the most recent school board meetings and I've heard some very concerning dialogue about Cy Springs. I would like to thank Board Vice President Julie Henneman for defending Cy Springs. Cy Springs has a B rating for accountability. Only 3 high schools have an A rating. Cy Springs is not close to being a low-performing school, and Cy Springs is definitely not a high-crime school. Our school district prides itself on being fiscally responsible. In regards to the zoning proposals, I think we should use a combination of Proposal 1 and 2 for the high schools. In particular, the first proposal utilizes capacity at Cy Springs, and the second proposal utilizes Cy Fair and Langham Creek's capacity. As the board president Tom Jackson mentioned, we need to make sure we are using capacity that is available, as it is expensive to build new high schools. I conclude by saying, instead of fighting for the exclusivity of 3 A-rated high schools, I implore the community to fight to have 12 A-rated high schools.
Our next speaker is Armando Perlaza.
Good evening, board members. My name is Armando Perlaza. I'm actually a first sergeant in the active duty Army, and I am a proud resident of Stonegate community and a member of, and I have my family a long time ago decided that we were going to move there because of the relationship that they have built with Cy Ranch. We oppose 1210, and we are for 1110. If you choose 12-8, you will be splitting the middle school Spillane in 3 different directions, with which no other middle school is doing currently, and not even a nearby ISD is doing either. Please make a decision based on data that will help our ISD long-term, not short-term, based on a competent decision. 1110 is that competent decision to help our students have stability and develop our future leaders. Vote 1110. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jessica Morgan.
On 1110, the administration put forth a plan that had been researched and vetted to address the goals of relieving overpopulated schools. The residents of Bridge Creek opposed it based on their emotional responses, not facts. The 12-8 proposal was an attempt to appease them. If the board adopts 12-8, they are publicly endorsing the view that Springs is a bad school and you should be afraid to send your children there. 12-8 was not fully vetted. It forces Spillane Middle School to feed into 3 high schools, which in turn will negatively impact Ranch's fine arts and athletic programs. It doubles bus routes for the next 3 years, and it doesn't solve the problem of rapidly growing neighborhoods causing overpopulated schools. Stonegate is an established neighborhood that is not growing nor building more houses. We are not the problem, and yet under 12-8, our kids will get rezoned for a 3rd time. The people of Stonegate want to stay at Cy Ranch not because we are scared of falls, but because we love the school we have built at Ranch. We have poured our time, energy, and money into this school, and our children have built its nationally recognized programs. 12-8 takes that away from us, divides our community, strains our buses, and wipes out Ranch's programs. I urge you to vote on the 1110 proposal.
Our next speaker is Lisa Abuka.
I live in Res Code 3330, zoned for Hoover Joel, Kala, and Cy Springs. My neighborhood should be zoned to Copeland or Holmesley and Langham Creek. But the lines are gerrymandered. I can hear the bells and announcements from Langham Creek, yet Res Code 3330 is bused 2.7 miles away to Cy Springs. I would also like to know why my September 10th school choice option transfer request was denied to Copeland because there wasn't space for my student, and yet here we are adding res codes to Copeland. Lastly, I would like to point out to the parents possibly being zoned to Postmo or Copeland that these 2 schools have a PTO and allow lunch visitors, 2 things Hoover doesn't offer. Bottom line, the school board should not be making zoning decisions based on where a PTO president lives.
Our next speaker is Crystal Kinsey. Crystal Kinsey. Our next speaker is Yvette Colbert.
Good evening to everyone and the board. I do appreciate you have a most difficult task. It's not easy. I don't envy you. However, I am also with Stonegate and speaking on behalf of myself and my family. I also urge you to vote for the November 10th proposal over the December proposal. This November proposal is the most reasonable and achieves the majority of the board goals, populating Cy Springs and Cy Falls while also relieving Bridgeland and Cy Ranch, and displaces fewer children, requires fewer middle school splits, and ultimately provides stability and a sense of belonging to a larger majority, our students, without rezoning us again. Stonegate continues to be rezoned, 2006 from Falls to Fair, 2016 from Fair to Ranch, and now Cy Ranch back to Cy Falls. We have nothing against, or I should say I have nothing against Cy Falls or these schools, but I would like to continue, and I would like my family to continue to stay to Cy Ranch, where we have continued to build a legacy, where my daughter is right now in color guard practicing, and also to have that extend to her two younger siblings who are in the audience here today. Thank you. Vote for the November 10th proposal. Appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Celine Hattab.
Hello, my name is Celine Hattab. I am a 7th grader at Spillane Middle School. Ever since I've been in 2nd grade, I've known that I would go to Cy Ranch. I even have an older sister that goes to Cy Ranch, and I've been with her to tour the school many times, and I've even hoped to join their school orchestra. But then I'm told that because of zoning changes, I might have to go to Cy Falls instead of Ranch. So now all hopes I had of going to Cy Ranch are gone. And that's not the only thing I'm losing, because even though I can easily adapt to going to Cy Falls and joining their school orchestra instead, I'm gonna lose a bunch of my friends because majority of them don't live in my neighborhood. So either way, they'll go to Cy Ranch. And those friendships aren't something I can replace. And I'm not the only one who loses friends because every other student in my neighborhood who'll be forced to change schools if the zoning happens will as well. That's why I'm speaking today to tell you it's not fair for all the families and students affected by the zoning to have to suffer. Just like I'll suffer if I'll have to lose my orchestra and school friends. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Nikhil Joyner.
Hi, I'm an 8th grader in Spillane, and I think it's unfair that I'm being forced to go to Cy Falls for many reasons. First, we're already made our 4-year plan, which is based solely on Cy Ranch. All my chosen classes and endorsements were chosen because I knew that they were in Cy Ranch. Second, considering where Cy Falls is located, it's more closer to Houston, which Houston has a higher criminal percentage rate, which terrifies me. Cy Falls is much further away from home, which would mean that it would be a longer distance to get from school to home. And assuming we're going to have a lot of homework to do, it's going to be difficult for all of us. Finally, the endorsements I have chosen were for my future career at Cy Ranch. It's not fair that I'm going to start over again like when COVID started. This is not right and not fair, and you're separating me from my friends and my choices. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dion Celestine.
Happy New Year. I implore you to vote for the 1110 proposal. The fear and hate that we speak in preparation for speaking, I pulled the transcript from the 12/8 meeting, and I noticed the same speech that was delivered then. All kind of horrible things about that school is not allowed now, so I won't say that. However, we hope that Stonegate is the backbone and the tax base of this electoral community. On the back of the kids' lanyard is a suicide prevention number. Please don't make their lives harder with these transitions that they constantly have to go through. Please vote 1110.
Our next speaker is Donna Joyner.
Hello, I'm currently an 8th grader at Spillane Middle School. I don't think this proposal is fair. I'm being taken away from my friends, which takes a bit of an emotional toll on me. And I chose my elective specifically for Cy Ranch because I was expecting to go to Cy Ranch and I knew they would be there. That also goes to my 4-year plan for high school, which I already put Cy Ranch on there. So I don't think there's any changing for it. And because of the location that it's in, I fear that my safety will be in risk based on the research I've done. And
I feel like the district is not really caring about the students' feelings here. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Kishore Kumar Bandalamuri.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kishore, and I'm a resident and representative of Bridge Creek. We understand that the district has the challenging task of balancing parent concerns, student interest, and the district needs. With the zoning committee's recommendation that Bridge Creek remain at Smith Middle School versus the new middle school, the option for our children to attend Cy Ranch High School allows Smith Middle School to become an exclusive feeder school to Cy Ranch High School. This also protects our children's emotional health and reduces the social anxiety that may exist from not continuing on to high school with their friends from middle school. We encourage the board to vote yes to the new proposed boundary changes for Smith Middle School and Cy Ranch High School. Thank you for your time. Thanks, everyone.
Our next speaker is Christy Santiago. Christy Santiago. Our next speaker is Theodore Ted Fritz.
Good evening, Board. My name is Ted Fritchie. I live in Stogate, Residential Code 373, and I oppose the 12-8 proposal that moves Stonegate from Cy Ranch to Cy Falls. I oppose the 12-8 proposal because Stonegate being rezoned for the third time is excessive. We feel like a ping pong ball bouncing between 3 different high schools. Nobody buys a house expecting to be rezoned 3 times. This is ridiculous. If adjustments need to be made for overcrowding, it's time to take a more balanced approach. How about letting another subdivision take their first turn at being rezoned instead of tapping Stonegate for the 3rd time? As of now, I see no significant advantages going to Cy Falls over Cy Ranch, and for that, I oppose this December modification. Please vote for the 1110 proposal. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Peyton Fritzie.
Hello, my name is Peyton Fritchie. I live in Stonegate and I'm currently a 7th grader at Spillane Middle School. I'm one of the 127 students who will be affected by this change to send Cy Falls instead of Cy Ranch. I strongly believe that this change is wrong because not only me, but other kids will have to lose all the higher levels of academic, athletic, and musical benefits that we've been preparing and planning for at Ranch. My question is why us again? Stonegate has already been through a zone change, and this zone change moved me from Arnold Middle School to Spillane Middle School. As a result, not only me, but other kids become beyond upset for the severe loss of relationships that we built during our only 6 years in elementary school. This new change changed us from Cy Ranch to Cy Falls. If we have to go through this zone change again, it's beyond unfair to lose our second set of relationships. No student should ever have to experience the trauma of 2 school zone changes. This second change would cause me to lose the friendships and memories that I should have got to keep throughout our high school years. Considering the fact that we know most people at Falls, this makes me feel as if we're all starting all over. We are only children. We are not numbers meant to be simplified. Please find it in your heart to stop rezoning us and keep Stonegate at Ranch.
Our next speaker is Kiara Anderson.
I am a Spillane student. I have been looking forward to attending Cy Ranch as my dream is to be a theater star. Ranch has a nationally recognized theater program, and we also have seen many of one of their shows, and we also donated. They even have the orchestra playing with the theater, which I have not seen at other high schools. Also, the friends I have made are all going to Ranch or Woods. Sending me to Falls is making me start over like others. Please do not do this needlessly. Vote for 1110 and help me and many others achieve their dreams. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Tanya Collier.
Hi, my name is Tanya Collier. I've lived in Town Lake since 2012, where my stepson, and my family moved in, who also had special needs and suffered from autism. And Ranch was a fabulous place for him to be. Years later, now we have 2 first graders at Rennell Elementary. We live a whopping 200 feet from the school. We love the school. I volunteer there. I serve there. I'm not an important person by any stretch, but I can understand both sides of the map. However, I would like to go ahead and finalize both 2023 and 2024 and finalize that 12-8 map so we can keep our students at Rennell and also to help out Andre and Postma immediately with their overcrowding. Thank you for listening and thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Raisa Gonzalez.
Good evening. I'm a Splain student. I've been wanting to go to Cy Ranch for several years so I can achieve my goals, and it can be taken away. I'll be ripped apart from my friends, and I'll have to start all over. You're not just agreeing on something small, you're impacting lives. Please vote on 1110. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Megan Tate.
Good evening. My name is Megan Tate. I have 2 kids that go to Keith Elementary, and I'm here to voice my concern about the proposal to send my neighborhood, Hidden Arbor, to A. Robinson. Today, I followed my children's bus from their pickup location. There are 2 stops in our neighborhood. Once we got to Muskee, I turned west on the route they'll take if we get switched to A. Robinson. I only got stopped at 2 lights out of the 8 that are on that route. It took me 16 minutes, and I just drove by the school. I didn't go into the parking lot and unload like the bus will be doing. That drive time is twice the amount that we have currently. How will CFISD ensure our kids will not be on the bus for extended amounts of time? Our neighborhood is one of the northernmost neighborhoods on Muskee. There are at least 4 other elementary schools that are closer to us than A. Robinson, so why are we being asked to drive so much further? Finally, I implore all of you guys to take that drive yourself, and it will be very, very clear that it's a lot to ask us to drive that far, and we're passing neighborhoods that are much closer but are going to Keith still. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joseph Green.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Green. I'm a community member and representative of Bridge Creek. We at Bridge Creek want to thank the board for their new proposal and consideration of placing our children at Cy Ranch. This will certainly alleviate concerns and keep our children committed to a feeder school with maintain consistency with their education, mental health, and well-being. This solution also commits to one of the boundary rules of proximity, and Cy Ranch is the second closest school after Bridgeland. You may refer to Table 1 of your handout of a proximity miles provided. Moving Bridge Creek to Cy Ranch and continuing enrollment to Smith helps resolve capacity issues with Smith with the opening of the new middle school, yet our community is small enough, and it should have minimal impact, minimal increase to enrollment to Cy Ranch. Lastly, tonight you may hear or have heard from other members of the communities not part of Bridge Creek against proposal changes for Cy Ranch. While some of these may members of our larger HOA community, these opinions do not reflect thoroughly comprehensive opinions of Bridge Creek neighborhood and wholly have taken a single school utilization consideration, not looking for the best interest of our students in terms of proximity, feeder schools, and social and emotional health.
Our next speaker is Tara Cummings.
I understand that these decisions are complex and crucial. To the families who will be impacted, I'm sorry that you're facing this stressful situation. I have a friend who's lived in Stonegate for 9 years, and pending the boundary change, they will have been zoned to 3 different high schools. I know that these changes must sometimes be made, but it's still really, really hard on the families impacted. Mr. Scanlon, the way you spoke last month about students living in apartments when discussing proposed boundary changes was truly appalling. I can't begin to fathom what any student's amenities have to do with their education, but you apparently think it's of utmost importance. I previously lived in an apartment, and I gotta say I miss all those amenities, and my kids are still very nostalgic about that time. When we lived there, my kids played, were in activities, and attended parties with kids living in single-family homes all the time. They didn't even have to drink out of a separate water fountain or anything. And now that we no longer live in an apartment, my kids still associate with kids living in all sorts of settings, apartments and otherwise. As boundaries are considered, and as you serve our district, let me remind you that you serve CFISD, all of it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Monique Lee.
Good evening. My name is Monique Lee, and I'm a mother of 2 Spillane students. I'm here wearing not my shirt, but my son's shirt, whose best friend bought it for him so they could attend all the Cy Ranch football games together. One of our district's goals is to bring out the best in every student. I can assure you that this works both ways for Ranch and our kids in our community. Our community was zoned to Ranch in its early days when it was unknown, and we are the ones who woke up at 5 a.m. to bring kids to practice, arrange for tutoring, and pay extra for private lessons. We are the parents who consistently show up, volunteer, and we are the ones who vote. Cy Ranch is a jewel in the crown of this district. We help to make it so, and our kids deserve stability and to enjoy what we have invested in the school. The 12-8 plan will strip Cy Ranch of some of its most supportive families. Our sense of community here is at the highest level a district could hope to achieve. It would be remiss to destroy the legacy to simply accommodate Bridge Creek parents who express fear publicly of Cy Springs. Please vote the 1110 plan, which meets the zoning goals while preserving the best parts of our district.
Our next speaker is Chaitanya Vardhan Kandula.
Good evening. My name is Chaitanya Vardhan Kandula, and I'm a resident and representative of Bridge Creek. As we have brought forth in previous meetings, our children have experienced an abnormal amount of change, uncertainty, and stress in the last 2 years. With the young age of our community, all our families have moved in the last 2 years, causing our children to be uprooted from their previous schools, friends, and neighborhoods. The understanding was that this move would be a positive one, although creating another level of anxiety in starting over. We asked that the children stay within the feeder schools so that they do not have to leave their friends behind yet again. Our children should not have to be subjected to the level of social anxiety when they move to the middle school and again to for high school. We encourage the board to vote yes to keep our children in feeder schools from Smith Middle School to Cy Ranch High School. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Shanika Miles. I'm sorry, Jenna Bradburn.
Hi, my name is Jenna Bradburn. I'm a resident of Hidden Arbor, and my daughter is the 3rd grader at Keith. I could go on and on about how pivotal Keith has been in our lives, in our family. My daughter has been diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. She started kindergarten the year COVID shut everything down. She was just learning to read and write. I would truly give those teachers the shirt off my back if they needed it. Julian is just one example of many who would be rocked by the change of her elementary school. And disabilities aside, these 3rd graders have been through it all. So these children are so emotionally invested in their school. And if we have an opportunity to make a change, a boundary change with other children who are not yet invested in their school, the kids at Dunham Point, I would really like to propose that you would consider sending Dunham Point to A. Robison instead of rezoning our neighborhood to A. Robison. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Shanika Miles.
Good evening. I'm a Stonegate resident, an educator, and a mother of 6 children in the district. I would like to express my strong opposition of the 12A proposal, the rezoning of Stonegate RC codes 2173 and 373 from Cy Ranch to Cy Falls. While I understand that there are other growing communities, our children are right here, right now. The 12-8 proposal is a short-term resolution with long-term effects on our children's mental health and stability. My oldest daughter, Jade, number 8, is now in the 8th grade and has had to unexpectedly readjust her 6th and 5th grade school experience due to the pandemic, and now as things have seemingly returned back to normal and she's feeling safe and secure, this plan changes that. I would encourage you to take another look and think about these children and the adjustments they have had to make in their lives, some that even some adults would have a hard time with. Show them their community matters. Show them their friendships and mental health matter. Please show them that they matter by allowing them to attend Cy Ranch.
Our next speaker is Kelly Murphy.
Good evening. Thank you for letting, me come speak again after the December meeting. I speak on behalf of my 8th grader and request that you say no to the 12-8 and yes to the 11-10. Also, I wish I could speak as well as our Stonegate children. They're amazing. But we talk about community a lot, and so let me give you an example of community. Earlier this fall, I'm texting with my daughter's besties from Splain's moms, and we're discussing Christmas because none of us can afford their dream list of Lulu, Kendra, and pandas. So we're more realistic. And I said, do what I did. Buy them what they need for high school next year. I bought this in September for my daughter for the swim team because she's going to swim for Ranch. She started talking to the coach 2 years ago. This is my other daughter's volleyball shirt from playing at Ranch. That is community. So I ask that you keep our community together. My daughter is one of the ones that gets sent from Lambkin to Splain to Ranch, which makes us feel like ping pongs, chess,
Please stop.
joystick, and Band-Aids.
Please stop. Our next speaker is Jeremy Lee.
No, you missed one.
Satya Kamani.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Satya Kamneni. I have 2 kids. I am resident and representative of Bridge Creek. The community of Bridge Creek would like to once again thank each and every member of the school board and the attendance joining committee for listening to our community's concerns. We are an incredibly diverse and passionate community united in our goal to provide the best educational pathways for success to our children. We all share a common bond in choosing this district specifically to best care for our children's education. Cypher ISD is an amazing school district thanks to your continued efforts. Just to recap our community's request, we would like to see a vote for S to Joan, Bridge Creek students to Smith Middle School and Cyranch High School, ensuring our students are aligned with feeder schools and help prevent unnecessary social anxiety and stress to them. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Jeremy Lee.
Good evening. My family lives in Stonegate. We have 2 kids at Spillane that'll be affected. If the district's primary concerns actually include relief for Bridgeland and Cy Ranch and maximizing underutilized campuses and minimizing any changes, the 12-8 proposal is just objectively worse than 11-10. In multiple ways, it actually provides less long-term relief for Cy Ranch. If you look at the 5-year projections, I bet it gets even worse if you look beyond 5 years. It only increases enrollment at 3 underutilized campuses as opposed to the 4 that are increased by November 10th. It splits Spillane 3 ways. That makes it the only middle school in the whole district that would be split 3 ways. Mr. Jackson said at the meeting last time that he knows how important being as close to true feeders really is for the community and everything, and that being the only school that's split 3 ways is going in the wrong direction. Obviously, kids will be affected either way, but 12-8 affects my kids and the 23% of their friends who would be going to Cy Falls. So, thank you.
Our next speaker is Vivian Lee.
Good evening. I'm Vivian Lee, and I'm a 7th grader at Spillane. As a theater student in 6th grade, I participated and placed in the UIL one-act play competition. After seeing the Pippin production at Cy Ranch, I have been thrilled to someday be a part of Ranch's amazing theater program. I'm grateful that my neighbor, who is a senior in theater, has been like a mentor to me. Since football season began, I have been dreaming of someday becoming part of the drill team, and I will audition next spring. Though many of my friends are going to Cy Woods, I still have a good amount of people who will attend Cy Ranch with me, and it makes me feel more comfortable moving on to high school with people I've known for 7 years, and it's just cruel to split us apart. I'm part of the next generation of Cy Ranch students, and I feel I should be able to enjoy the investments my neighborhood has put into the community of Cy Ranch. Yes. Thank you.
And that was our last speaker who had signed up to speak. Nope. Again. Okay. I have skipped 5 people. I will not skip you. Alyssa Anderson.
Thank you. The district did not give the same email notifications for the 12-8 proposal as they had with the 11-10. Therefore, it seems unjust to have 12-8 as an option to vote on. You were unwilling to consider Stonegate's 1-9 counter proposal. Therefore, we are asking you to vote yes on 11-10, which includes all the goals the board has, including populating Cy Falls, Langham Creek, and Cy Springs. 12-8 ignores Springs. And relieving Ranch and Bridgeland while displacing fewer kids in your district and keeping better feeder patterns. Please do not move our established community out of our school, Cy Ranch, which has become a part of our identity and neighborhood pride. The sibling rule does not fix the problem. It makes the 8th graders who are the oldest in the family to be an even smaller percentage at Cy Falls as their friends follow their siblings to ranch. We want stability. Our community isn't building new homes. Our numbers are not increasing. You can keep us at Cy Ranch as we originally were proposed on 1110. Please vote yes on 1110.
Now, unless anybody else corrects me, I think that was our last speaker on this agenda topic. But I've been wrong before. Item 3B. Do we have a presentation this evening?
Yes.
And if so, I think that would be Teresa Hull, Christy Giron, and Laura Lawless.
Good evening, everyone. Our District Boundary Committee has worked countless hours in preparation for this meeting to deliver what we feel is the very best comprehensive boundary recommendation. We've answered phone calls, responded to countless emails, and read thousands of pieces of community input. Through community and board input, we've investigated many different options and suggestions. And because of this input, we are even recommending altering the sibling transfer policy for students affected by a boundary change. We understand there's no perfect recommendation. Our District Boundary Committee met for one final time early last week. After several hours of weighing all of the pros and cons of every option, we believe the plan that we are presenting tonight achieves our goals. Establishing boundary for 2 new schools opening in 23-24 and for the new elementary school opening in 24-25, providing sufficient enrollment relief for the longest period of time. While it may seem ideal to our community that the districts prioritize rezoning efforts towards new communities, enrollment data show that it is not always an adequate answer to campus enrollment relief, especially when the implementation is spread out over years and major growth in the area is compounding and overcrowding. Our plan also addresses underutilized campuses. With that, I'm going to begin. Again, here are the itemized list of the committee's priorities. This is what we focused on. I'm going to follow this order when explaining our final recommendation. So here we go. I'll start with Elementary 58. It's a beautiful brand new building on the corner of Clay Road and Westville Village, and will open this fall. There are a lot of shifts involved in populating Elementary 58. Just a reminder, the map on the left, the colors are the current boundaries, and the black lines represent the final recommended boundary lines. The map on the right is the final cleaned up recommendation. Elementary 58 is providing much needed relief to M. Robinson, Sheridan, and Hemingway. We have a lot of elementary schools in a very small area in the bottom part of the district. With the opening of Elementary 58, we were able to achieve a more even distribution of students across the 7 schools instead of the current 6 schools. Here's the res code summary for the elementary number 58. There are no changes since the last time. Here are the projected enrollment numbers for all 7 schools affected by this recommendation. I'm sure you're familiar with this format. The top part of the chart are the current projected numbers with no recommendation, and the bottom part of the chart are the numbers based on our final recommendation for elementary number 58. Are there questions regarding our final recommendation for elementary school 58? Okay. With a recommendation to populate elementary school 58, there's one minor adjustment in the feeder pattern that needs to be addressed. In the recommendation, we moved res code 3380B from Sheridan to McPhee. It ends up being the only neighborhood that would be in the Thornton attendance zone, but would still attend Watkins. So we're recommending moving that res code to Thornton. Here are the projected numbers associated with this recommendation. Note Thornton has a larger capacity than Watkins. Also, both schools are currently below their projections. Therefore, the future projections should probably be adjusted accordingly this coming spring. Are there any questions regarding the feeder pattern alignment recommendation? Okay, middle school number 20, located at Bridgeland Wells Complex and will also open next fall. Middle school 20 is providing much needed relief to Smith Middle School located next door to Cypress Ranch High School. Today, Smith was at 2071. Here are the projected numbers associated with this recommendation. At this time, are there any questions regarding this recommendation to populate middle school 20? Okay. Next, we have 4 elementary recommendations that relieve and better utilize adjacent campuses. I'm going to start with Metcalf. Okay. This is a Lowry to Holmesley and a Holmesley to Metcalf shift. Okay, here are the res codes that are included in this recommendation. Again, it's the same that you've seen since November. Here are the projected totals with this final recommendation. Notice the capacity of these 3 schools are not only smaller than other elementary schools, but that we're building now, but Lowry and Holmesley are significantly smaller than Metcalf. Metcalf is the largest school with the fewest students. Here's another example where we were able to shift students so that the enrollment projections for all 3 schools are more aligned with the school's capacities. Are there any questions regarding Metcalf utilization?
Thank you. For the Summerall area that's currently zoned to Lowry, you're going to move that to Holmesley?
Yes. Well, there's Summerall Park that's Holmesley to Metcalf. Which Summerall are you referring to? There's 4.
Well, Res Code 26 and
Okay,
65
yes, it's
and
Lowry to Holmesley.
676, yes.
Summerall Square.
So for that shift out of Lowry, what does that do to the Lowry population? You have that on the next slide?
This,
You do.
yes.
So do you have any concern that Lowry is underpopulated with that shift?
No, sir, they have a small capacity of 827 compared to the other.
Well, you mean
Holmesley, I'm sorry, 858.
Yeah, 858, yeah.
858, apologies. Yeah. All 3 of those schools are declining, and Metcalf is the most underutilized with the largest capacity. Any other questions regarding Metcalf utilization? Okay. Bain Elementary utilization recommendation. This is a similar situation where not only can we better utilize Bain, but geographically it just makes sense. The 5 res codes that are south of 290 currently go to Bain Elementary to move them to Holbrook Elementary, making 290 the dividing line. Here's the res code summary for this recommendation, along with the projected new totals to reflect the recommendation. As you can see, both Bain and Holbrook remain stable, and both schools are still projected to operate below capacity. In proportion to their capacities, this is a perfect recommendation. Are there any questions regarding the Bain-Holbrook recommendation? Okay. The Hancock Elementary enrollment relief. Like populating elementary school, new elementary school 58, it's a complex plan that involves 8 elementary schools. These are some of the oldest schools in the district with, again, some of the smallest capacities. Whoops, sorry. Here's a summary of the res code changes involved with this recommendation. Again, no change since November. There is a piece in this that is going to be a feeder pattern alignment in both middle school and high school, and I'll share that in just a second. Here are the 5-year projected enrollment for these elementary schools. With this recommendation, we relieve Hancock, and we keeping in mind the capacities on the left. When you follow those capacities all the way to the right, you can see how balanced those numbers are compared to the wide variety of capacities of the older schools. We relieve Hancock and we better utilize the surrounding adjacent schools. Are there any questions on relieving Hancock? Like when we populated elementary 58, we had a minor feeder pattern adjustment. Relieving Hancock, we need to address a few feeder patterns at the middle school level and the high school level. Whoops. Okay. On the slide to the left of the name Blythe, just west of Jones Road, is the Matsky to Millsap recommended change to the Hancock Relief Plan. They will be the only group that would be attending Blythe, so we recommended a feeder pattern change from Blythe to Arnold. Also, the Yeager to Francone recommended change will make those residents be the only students in the Campbell zone attend Blythe. So we're recommending a change from Blythe to Campbell. The summary of the recommended changes, approximately 74 students from Blythe to Arnold and 61 students from Blythe to Campbell. Here are the projected numbers associated with this final recommendation, and all 3 campuses projected right at or below the capacity after these changes. Okay, for the exact same area, we're rezoning Matsky to Millsap and Blythe to Arnold. We're recommending a high school change for the feeder pattern alignment. That little section would be the only area that would attend Cypress Creek, so we propose to move them from Cypress Creek to Cypress Fair High School. Here's the projected number of 9th grade students only to move from Cy Creek to Cy Fair. This is a phase-in plan with every year adding another grade level. In 4 years, it's projected to be a total of 113 students. The projections reflect a gradual implementation of the recommended plan. By 26-27, all grade levels from those res codes are reflected in the projected totals. Are there any questions regarding the feeder pattern alignment for Cy Fair, Cy Creek due to the Hancock relief and the Blythe to Arnold recommendation? Okay. Now for the Walker relief. This is a proactive recommendation to help us prepare Walker for the growth that's occurring on a daily basis. Grand Mason, res code 888 and 999, along with Marvita, south of Longenbaum. These 3 sections alone are projected to produce more than 500 students within the next 4 years. The way we have it on here is 604A and 604B are the recommended to attend Duryea. So I mentioned before in November, PASA has been separated since 604 is the actual land where Cypress Springs High School and Hopper are situated. We're proposing to move all of 604 to Duryea. We don't have it separated like that they do. So no one lives in 604B because those are campuses. So the numbers look much better for Walker. They will definitely need a little more help in a few more years again, but for now, it at least helps them a little bit. Any questions on the Walker relief plan? All right. Sorry.
So, Christy, before you go on,
Yes, sir.
you made the comment that Walker would need relief in just a couple of more years. If it's only 2 more years, why aren't we discussing making that change now?
Because there's not that many students in the other roads, because those are developing communities, and Walker can take what they have right now with just moving that one res code. It
So-
has 319 students in it that we're moving to Duryea. So they're good for a little while until those other developments have time to develop.
Christy, in theory, what would be the impact in 3 years? Do you have any visibility of what that might mean in year 3 or year 4?
For,
Yeah, for Duryea?
it's slide 34.
Well, pardon me, for Walker, where it looks like Walker's going to be
Yes.
significantly over capacity,
Walker 1323 in the year 25, 26.
and then at 26, 27 at 1504, 1544?
54, yes.
I think what we'll have to consider with future Walker relief is a future elementary. As you know, we own property at the Cy Park complex for a future elementary, so that would be the next relief for Walker Elementary,
Okay.
would be a new school.
Okay, got it. Is that elementary school part of the current bond program?
No.
Okay.
No, the 2019 bond program does not include an elementary school on the Cy Park campus.
Right.
The construction of, right? We have the property, but not the funds. So the board at that time,
We'll have to-
2025, would seek a bond election.
Got it. Okay.
The remainder of the presentation are the recommendations that have been the topic of the majority of the input. The first one up is the Rennell Relief Plan. With Elementary 59 open in the fall of 2024, and with not wanting to move kids twice within a 2-year period, we knew our plan needed to be minimal. The fact was, Rennell needed relief, and the main question was, do we do it now or do we wait until 59 opens? After discussing many possibilities and after reviewing all of the input, and talking with all the principals of the schools that would be impacted, we feel very strongly that Rennell needed immediate relief for the 23-24 school year. When we went back to the original plan with moving Res Code 91, new Res Code 91, to Postma, and since Postma could not take 135 students without losing some students, we moved 2 sections of Postma to Copeland, which easily has room for those students better utilizing Copeland. Again, we are preparing to open 59 in the fall of 2024. We just did phase 1, if you will, of the recommendation for the 23-24 school year to prepare to open up for 59. Here are the res codes for this recommendation. So while Postma is gaining 135, they're losing approximately 179. Here are the projections for the Rennell relief recommendation. Notice for the 23-24 school year, Rennell and Postma get relief, while Copeland is better utilized. Are there questions regarding this Rennell relief recommendation?
We had discussion since the last board meeting regarding the community on the north side of Town Lake, Parkside. There had been some analysis done. I don't see that analysis here.
Right. We are not recommending separating that at this time because the development doesn't have that many kids. We were going to wait and see what it did next year.
The struggle with, is it Parkside? Get the names mixed up. With Parkside and the options that we would have to provide future relief for Rennell is looking at, again, the feeder pattern situation. We have 2 ways we can go. We can go towards Woodard, or we could go towards Warner. I know you and I discussed, and I think I provided the board with an analysis for both. So if they go towards Warner, it was recommended looking at Smith as a possible middle school feeder, because Smith will have space because of the enrollment relief we're providing with middle school 20. The challenge with that is just the small number of students well, first off, Warner can't handle additional students. On the Woodard side, Woodard can handle the additional students, but Woodard is currently a feeder for Spillane and for Aragon. And so if the board would like to do that, we can zone them, but that would be just that small group until we increase the population in Parkside and have a larger number of students that would then leave Woodard to probably go to Anthony, which is their current middle school. Does that make sense? Because there are not any students there now, you could end up with one kiddo leaving Woodard and going to a middle school by themselves until the population increases in that area. So we did not include it in our recommendation because I think we need to pause and look at the pace at which that section develops. I think the numbers are clear that there's going to need to be future relief for Rennell Elementary. But we, again, wanted to make certain that we were making a good, informed recommendation to you. So that's the reason we did not include that in our recommendation. But if the board desires that we pull that back in, we can certainly include that.
And Rennell's close to 1,300 right now, and with this recommendation, just this initial relief, you can see they're barely over 1,200 even in 5 years.
Yep.
So they're pretty stable.
Yep.
Are there any other questions regarding the Rennell relief recommendation?
So do you have any thoughts, and that section is what I call the handle, and we've all had an opportunity to review the information you sent. Any idea of ballpark when we think that will start developing?
We had heard as early as this spring, but I've heard rumors that it's going to be postponed until next fall. I don't really know for sure.
Lord, do you have any info on Parkside development? Only that it's under development.
Yeah.
I can get some, excuse me, I can get.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to please refrain from speaking out from the audience. Thank you.
The situation is we could go ahead with a recommendation to zone that section of Rennell, Town Lake rather, to Woodard. But again, not knowing how quickly, because Woodard can handle it, it would not change the middle school. Our only concern is the number of kiddos that would be leaving Woodard to go to Anthony. It could be one or two until that area develops. And again, it depends on the age of the students that move into those new homes at the time.
You know, mortgage, 30-year fixed mortgage hit 6.5%. And for those of you who are as old as I am, 6.5%, when I moved into Copperfield was a dream interest rate because mortgages were 12%. And I would ask patrons that if you cannot be quiet, you may leave. We can set up a television in another room for you. But this is not the time for patron comments. This is not a public meeting. This is a meeting in the public. And so if you want to talk, you can go outside the building and talk. But if you're going to stay in the room, this is not the time and place. There is a time and place to sign up. We had 59 individuals who signed up. There will be more opportunities at the next board meeting to sign up to speak. But this is not the time and place for the public to be speaking.
President Jackson, are you, so continuing?
Yes. So at any rate, I like the idea of waiting to see how it develops. As I was saying, 6.5% mortgage is not particularly high. That is still historically low for the United States. But it does take some people out of the equation in buying new property. And we know nationally, but also we know in the state of Texas, construction has slowed dramatically. Houston Chronicle has had any number of articles on it. So I am not opposed to pausing that section. I do think if we're moving just a small number of children, it doesn't give any benefit, but it does present a hardship. But then again, I have only one vote in the matter. So having said that, are there other questions or comments on what I'm calling the handle of that section?
So I have some comments. So can you play back, Christy, some of the numbers that we had as a projection, please, for the Parkside area regarding the number of students in elementary school, the number of students that we had considered?
I'd have to look at that email. Hang on one second.
I can, if you want to go on, I'll pull that number up and provide that to you specifically.
Okay. I think the question becomes, we have two schools here for Postma and Rennell, and both of which are going to need some relief in the near term, not dramatic, but some. And I'm trying to understand how we can put to bed some of the questions that we had. We'd agreed as a board previously to maybe postpone a decision to better understand the population growth. And I wanted to just clarify and bring that discussion back one more time to make sure that we all understood what we were describing.
If I can go ahead and go forward with elementary 59,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see where Postma has more relief.
Okay?
Okay. So this is just the Rennell relief plan. Okay. One small res code 91 moving to Postma.
Mhm.
In order to allow that to happen, we need to relieve Postma to Copeland. And so when 59 is built and opens in the fall of 24-25, we are, obviously, it's in Mira Mesa, so that entire Res Code 152 will leave Postma and go to 59. That's our recommendation. So the slide on the left is what we're recommending for 59 lines, but it already includes our 23-24 recommendation to relieve Rennell.
Okay.
So you can see Rennell is not touched at all again.
Mm-hmm.
And it includes the handle.
Mhm.
And then you have Res Code 10, Avalon at Cypress, and 3232 Bridge Creek going to 59, right across Fry Road. And then you have a Res Code 697 A and B from Andre going to help relieve Andre, because it will need relief, all the growth, and then filling in Mira Mesa, if you will, for Postma. And so you can see on the right where you have the yellow, there's a 59 recommendation, all of Mira Mesa, Avalon at Cypress, and Bridge Creek. And then you have 697 A and B, which is Canyon Lakes West, east of Fry Road. All of those students going from Andre to Postma.
Okay, sir, would you like to join me outside for a minute? No, sir, I'm asking you to join me outside for a moment. Now.
Mr. Scanlon, I was able to pull up the Parkside numbers, and in looking at Parkside, for elementary age students, for the 23-24 school year, it's only 13 students.
Okay.
So it's a small number, again, not knowing exactly if they would be pre-K through 5.
Got
What
it.
we are projecting, again, a projection for middle school students would only be 6.
Right.
So you don't know, not all 6 of those students are in the same grade. So it's possible you could have maybe one 8th grader or
Yep.
one.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
I was remembering 7, but I've looked at too many numbers lately to
So
say
the
a number.
numbers initially are small, and they do grow. That's the reason we thought that we know that we're going to need to revisit Rennell for the future, but let's see the pace of the growth for the Parkside area and make certain that, you know, we don't create a situation, an unintended situation of a small group of kiddos being by themselves at an elementary or a middle school.
Yep.
So, but if we are open to any thoughts or ideas about that, but that was our reasoning behind not including it in the final recommendation. And although Warner, has space, does not have space, it would be a short-term solution for that group. As they continue to grow, they can't stay at Warner. Does that make sense? So
Okay.
that would be our reason for not moving them to Warner, because we'd probably need to move them again.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Okay.
Okay.
So these are the res codes that we're recommending moving in the 24-25 school year to open up elementary 59. These are the projected numbers with both the Rennell relief recommendation for the 23-24 school year, along with the recommendation to populate elementary 59 in the 24-25 school year.
Christy, just to clarify, so what your recommendation is, what was previously known as Phase 1 and Phase 2, you're recommending that we go ahead and move forward with Phase 1 and Phase 2 at this time?
Yes.
Okay, just clarifying.
Phase 1 had a couple options, but this is the one we ended up with.
Well, I want to clarify. These changes here with Andre, Wells and 59 and Postma, not Rennell, that is the so-called Phase 2. Rennell is not touched again in Phase 2.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, because I didn't want to confuse residents thinking
you.
that we were moving
Yes.
another group of
No,
kids.
I apologize.
No,
Yes,
we're
thank
not.
you for that clarification.
Without, I'm not going to, obviously don't have anything to show you, but we had talked about half of Town Lake. And the
Right.
input we received,
Right.
we kept it separated.
Right, I guess what I should say is we're not proposing
Contemplating
any
another
additional
move.
changes to
No.
those res codes.
No.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm good. So that would be the entire move for Town Lake, as far as we can see.
Yeah. For those numbers, they look really good for 5 years. I mean, they look really good for 5. I'm interested.
Agreed.
Excited to see the spring projections.
Agreed.
How things have changed, or if they have.
Yep.
Are there any questions regarding these two recommendations?
No.
Relief for Rennell or opening 59? Okay. Okay. Again, after looking at all of the input, the options, we decided to take a different approach with the Dunham Point development. At all levels, elementary, middle, and high school, in the next 5 years, it's projected to have over 150 students in the Dunham Point area alone. So starting with elementary, we're recommending all of the Dunham Point students, res code 750, go to AROB. We initially had a plan to move some alt kids to Swinkie, some alt kids to Keith, and then move some Keith kids to AROB in preparation for the Dunham Point development. By moving just Dunham Point to AROB for the elementary level, alt will be okay for now. We're moving fewer students and only touching one neighborhood. Might look kind of funny, but it works. And here are the projections with this recommendation. AROB will need relief in about 5 or 6 years, but for now, AROB is better utilized, and we have minimized the changes in the areas north of 290. I put the 9-year projections just for Dunham Point below, so you can kind of see just elementary alone, estimated 794 students with 1,500 in all levels in 9 years.
And this is a new refinement as well, correct?
I'm sorry?
This is a new refinement.
Yes, it is. It's, yes. We, again, had a alt to keep, the people have spoken tonight, Hidden Harbor and other neighborhoods.
And this was really based on input we received to kind of look at it. If you go back to the map, I mean, you can see why maybe some of our additional planning did not include A. Robinson because it's going to go to the next recommendation. It also changes their feeder pattern and just the proximity of this development. It just looks a little odd on the map, but it certainly does assist with our goal of trying to plan for the development of Dunham Point. That was the whole purpose for the Alt Relief Program, was to create space for Dunham Point. So in looking at it in a different way, based on the feedback, that this plan was developed. And again, we felt good about bringing it to you because there are very few students currently in the Dunham Point development. We know it will continue to grow. And we feel like this gives us a long-term solution for that community because when they do move again, it's most likely, again, I'm not going to be the person to make that decision. The change will be back into the Dunham Point community where we have land for an elementary, a middle, and a high school.
So is Hidden Harbor impacted by this?
Yes,
refinement?
they initially, they're in the recommendation going from Keith to A-Rob. And we have, and again, being proactive for Dunham and allowing room in Alt for Dunham. And by moving Dunham just straight to A-Rob, we feel that we do not need to make those other recommendations at this time.
So would you repeat that?
Yep.
As it relates to Hidden Harbor?
Okay. Hidden Arbor is no longer recommended to move from Keith to A-Rob as a result of moving the entire Dunham Point development to A-Rob at the elementary level. We'll see some other changes middle, high in a minute, but for now, this is the elementary level in preparation for planning for Dunham Point.
But it keeps Dunham Point together for a long period of time until a new school is going to be built. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. As I mentioned, with that recommendation, we recommend changing the middle school as well. We recommend Dunham Point attend Spillane instead of Salyards. As you can see, the numbers work. Both schools have a declining population. Dunham Point will provide both of the middle schools with a steady stream of new students, but as you can see, Spillane has more room and provides an equally as balanced enrollment.
And you can see that this goes out to, 31?
32.
So you can see that it could be a long-term solution as well, to provide the district, time to determine if and when they need to build a new campus in the Dunham Point community.
Yep.
I think that's an important point because I think there's, just to clarify the 2019 bond, just as Mr. Scanlon asked, the schools that were all part of the 2019 bond are already under construction. Like, there are no more new schools to come. And so, and that program runs through 2025. So if the board at that time chose to go to a bond election, you study for 6 months, you go to an election, that's still another year after that. And I think we've seen that we need elementary schools sooner than we need a new high school. So I think that new high school won't be built until 2030 or whenever, but it sounds like this. So what this looks like is that it provides a solution for Dunham Point and allows future boards to prepare for the need to build a high school and a middle school, and probably elementary school first, closer to 2030. And that's better for taxpayers to delay building new schools since a new high school costs about $275 million in today's dollars. Is that right? So, okay.
Yeah, this looks like an elegant solution, Kirsty.
Questions on the elementary and middle school Dunham Point plan? Well, like Julie said, I'm going to show you some numbers here, and again, I maybe need another water after this one. High schools, okay? Before I show you the map and I show you our recommendations, let me share some information. I want you all to listen. Today, there are a little over 38,000 students in our high schools. Today, the total high school enrollment is approximately 95% of our total high school's capacities, spread out among 12 other high schools. Our first plan did not adequately relieve Bridgeland and Cy Ranch for an extended period of time. We looked at other areas that could relieve both schools and not cause overcrowding to other schools 4 years later. The average yearly growth of our high school population has been on the decline. From 2008 through 2016, we were growing at an average of 904 students in high school grades per year. From 2016 to 23 now, that growth has slowed to an average of 521 students per year. And just in the past 5 years, it's 440 students. The translation of these numbers means CFISD has high school campuses that are underutilized, and until we are operating at maximum capacity, we aren't anticipating the need for a 13th high school until maybe near the far end of our 10-year projection period, which is what Ms. Heineman just said. Our recommendation includes shifts of students to alleviate overcrowding at almost all high school campuses that are above 110% capacity. In our plan, we recommend shifting to high school campuses that are at or below 90% capacity. CFISD strives to provide schools with well-rounded programs and opportunities while maintaining room for growth that avoids leaving schools overcrowded or underutilized for an extended period of time. Please think about that when I'm sharing our final recommendation with you. We'll have a 13th high school in the future. When, we don't know. We would have to have a bond election, it would have to pass, and then we would plan. When I show you the 9-year projections, I hope that you see what we were talking about. Since the last presentation in November, we have done nothing but crunch the numbers and try different options. The map in front of you provides substantial relief to Bridgeland and Cypress Ranch over the next 4 years, and at the same time better utilizes Cypress Falls and Langman Creek. I realize that makes many people disappointed. When making boundary changes, it is impossible to make everyone happy. The committee's job, and it is our job, was to begin with the end in mind. I can 100% for sure tell you that we have looked at every option through many lenses, and this is the best option. We're still recommending the northeast part of Bridgeland to go to Cypress Woods, the southeast section to go to Cypress Ranch, and now adding Dunham Point, and we are recommending that the development to attend Cypress Woods High School to align with the already recommended A-Rob and Spillane feeder pattern. To relieve Ranch, we are still recommending that 3 sections go to Langham Creek High School and 2 sections of Stonegate to go to Cypress Falls. The district looked at zones that can stay in place for the longest period of time while disrupting as few students as possible when rezoning. I want to mention Bridge Creek. The reason why we shifted from wanting Bridge Creek to go to Cypress Springs to Cypress Ranch had nothing to do with the input that we received. It had everything to do with the feeder patterns and the 2 developing communities that are being built currently right now, and that the small Smith population, they're going to end up going to 59 if passed and recommended. Then they would go to Smith, and then they'd be the only people from Smith going to Cypress Springs. And it's a developing community, and at this time, the relief that we're offering to Bridgeland was necessary. All right. The res codes for our final recommendation. These are 9th grade students only. And it doesn't look like much, but with these areas over a short 4-year implementation, Bridgeland will be relieved by approximately 922 students. 922 students. That's 454 from the northwest part, 125 projected at Dunham, and 343 students from the Avalon Bridge Creek developing areas. Cypress Ranch will be relieved by over 600 students by 2026, and that was our goal. For the 23-24 school year, our recommendation moves approximately 127 8th graders from Spillane to directly feed into Falls, making up approximately 24 to 25% of that population going to Falls from Spillane. Okay. With this recommendation, look at the current projections compared to the 9-year projected enrollment. You can go all the way out to 29-30 and you are still not where Bridgeland and Cypress Ranch are now. Other shifts will need to be made in the most southern part of the district, and we'll look at enrollment every single year. Are there questions regarding the Bridgeland Cypress Ranch relief plan, where the only changes include Dunn Point to Cypress Woods?
I do have a question for you.
Oh, I do too.
Okay.
What if we had a short-term pause on Cy Ranch relief?
Yep.
And to the patrons, I'm pleased that y'all have passion, but just like speaking out, it does not help us proceed. Many of y'all came here to speak. We did hear you. Merely speaking does not constitute a vote. But this is an opportunity for us to talk about it in public and for y'all to hear what we ask and the answers that we receive. But please, I would ask that public participation, that this is not the time. And I appreciate the fact that that was applause, but still, not the time. And remember, it was only a question. It's not a vote.
And President Jackson, just kind of following up on that point, Christy, what I'm looking at here is that Dunham Point still contains a significant amount of unknowns. We have projections. That's the best information we have, and we all acknowledge that it's not great information, but it's the best information we have. And in today's current interest rate environment, to your point earlier, Mr. Jackson, it probably would exclude and maybe slow down some of the build rates that had been projected, but all that remains to be fleshed out and understood. So with that being said, when we're looking at the impact to Cy Woods and any potential impact that growth may have coming forward in the coming years, perhaps it does make sense to pause on some of the Cy Ranch relief to wait and see how Dunham Point actually fleshes out in terms of actual growth.
Dunham Point is actually currently zoned to Bridgeland.
I'm well
Yeah.
aware, well
Okay.
aware.
Okay.
But what I think is, sorry, and I didn't clarify, what I think is going to occur is that as Dunham Point does flesh out, and right now we project it to go to Cy Woods. But in time, it may be that Cy Woods has to move students to Cy Fair and on down around to Cy Falls. I think there may be some question marks. Right now, our plan just envisions Dunham Point going to Cy Woods,
Yes.
correct? But it may be that future, in a year, we will have so much different information, it may be more realistic to pause until then and understand what we're looking at.
But your decision is 3,700 kids at Ranch. And, you know,
I'm not necessarily contemplating all kids regarding a move. So, you know, there are parts of the plan that I think probably make sense from a long-term perspective. So like Canyon Lake to Langham, I think that falls in line with our long-term view that's probably not going to change. So there's probably information that we know that's likely going to hold for a longer period of time. Kirsty, do you think that that's true, that there's some information that we know very well right now versus some that we don't know as well?
sure, yes, that's true. I do know, and we do have numbers for the established community of Stonegate and the Canyon Lakes at Stonegate.
I understand.
We can absolutely pause, and what we can do, just, I would want to make certain I understand completely what the board would like us to modify in the recommendation. If it's just any relief for Cypress Ranch, but move forward with the changes for the Bridgeland relief, is that what I'm understanding is the consideration? I mean, obviously, we can
So the
pause.
answer to your question, I can't speak for Mr. Scanlon, but that was certainly my point.
Okay.
we have to do something, right?
For Cypress Ranch, obviously, the pause means there's no change to their enrollment, their projected enrollment. They are projected for the 23-24 school year at 3708. They would be slightly larger than the projection, slightly smaller rather, than Bridgeland. Bridgeland is projected at 3725 for the 23-24 school year, but with the boundary proposal for the Bridgeland relief, that would bring them to 3558. I don't think pausing on Cypress Ranch would impact any of those other recommendations, but we can certainly look at it more closely to make certain. I don't want to say anything incorrectly, but we can absolutely look at that.
And once again, you've only heard from two board members. And Ms. Heinerman.
I actually had in my notes as well to look at possibly pausing. My concern is pausing on the Cyranch relief, although that was one of the #1 priorities with the looking at attendance zone changes. And I've spoken with the principals of Cyranch and Cy Falls and Spillane, and they want to keep all the kids. Obviously, they're the principals of the schools, right? They love all their kids. They love the families that they've built relationships with. The challenge is sometimes when these schools get so over capacity, you have like 30 teachers at Cy Ranch that don't have a classroom. They float. And that's very challenging. You have kids that can't make the softball team or the volleyball team or the drill team. I had a drill team daughter, or they don't get to march because there's so many kids participating. And then we have programs where there's not enough tubas to compete. There's not, we need to look at how we can best utilize our facilities and do what's best for the overall district. And that's so challenging when we want to respect and honor the individual requests of neighborhoods. There is no easy answer. I am fine with delaying this option of relieving Cy Ranch, but Cy Ranch is going to need to be relieved. And if we say, okay, now we'll use a different neighborhood, maybe we choose their neighborhood to move, and then they would not be happy about leaving Cy Ranch. Somebody is going to have to be rezoned from Cy Ranch. That school's just not big enough to hold 4,000 students. So that's just a struggle that I'm feeling right now. And there is no easy answer.
Well, and that's a valid point. Merely if we pause does not mean the issue does not go away.
Correct.
It merely gives us time to make certain that we explore all possible options.
And communicate them.
And residents are aware that even if we pause, what's being considered now may come back next year at this time.
Yep.
Other questions, comments? Dr. Blassingame.
Sort of related, even in the current plan, I still see high schools, I guess 2 of them, it looks like Langham Creek and Jersey Village, even ultimately are still under that 3,200, which seems to be most effective for programming. I do know that once a school's smaller, for example, electives needed to fill out the pathways of CTE pathways versus maybe traditional school pathways, choice classes, for example, art for a student. If the school's not big enough, the kids have a limited variety of options or they cannot get all the classes. So I would just like to know if we were even looking at these schools that stay under that maximum number, is there a small school subsidy or something that could make sure that all kids at all schools will have access to all classes that they may want to choose? So that is one thing I would mention, is that just the downside of being a school that doesn't get to the 3,200 number, and how we would support those schools to make sure those communities aren't losing out in choice. And I would also like to know, within the current proposal, hearing a three-way split of a middle school did not honor our intention of trying to make feeder patterns that stay together. So I'm interested to know with the new, how many feeder patterns, like what are the feeder patterns, just maybe laid out just like that? How many schools are staying together, and is that a common practice, or is that a rare thing, or was it fixed that a school would go three ways? Because that does seem like a bit excessive as far as the friendships and the community sense.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if it was looking at it in the future. With the Spillane split, you are correct. As far as three splits for that campus. That is not common. It has happened. I even know when I was principal at Hamilton Middle School, we had a three-way split with Cypress Creek, Cy-Fair, and Cy-Woods. What we looked at, and when we realized that was going to be created, we looked and focused on the number of students, because really in the end, we felt it was more important about the number of students that would be leaving a campus and going together, and making certain that was not so small that it would, have a bigger impact. I'm not saying it doesn't have an impact. So when we looked at the number, I think it was approximately 127 students that would leave Spillane to go to Falls. We have a similar number of students that leave other middle schools and go off to high schools that only have a two-way split. I think, Christy, if you want to read off the high schools, you sent those to me that have, but I can give that to you, but there are a number of campuses that have the same approximate number of students that are leaving a middle school and going to a high school together. So we focused on, again, the number of students versus the number of splits.
Right, about 50% of Cypress Woods is obviously Spillane, and then the other 25 would be from going to Cy Ranch from Spillane, and then the other 25% was now our recommendation going from Spillane to Falls.
And then we have, if I remember correctly, there's a split at...
There are several, there are like 4 or 5 high
Anthony.
schools that have 3 middle schools that go to them, but the middle school itself, most of them are split, we have 12 of our 18 are 100%. Okay, then the rest are 2 or 3 going to different high schools. We only have the one after this recommendation, but it's 25% of the kids attending or recommended to go from Spillane to Falls. We have, Cy Creek has 3 middle schools that feed, Cy Falls has 3, Cy Ridge has 3 middle schools, Cy Woods has 3. We have, again, 12 campuses that 100% feed one high school, but they may have several middle schools that feed into them.
And again, with the middle school, and I think Ms. Heineman, we looked and discussed even a middle school change, but we thought we would try to minimize that and keep them at the same elementary and middle school, and Spillane could continue to handle that enrollment. So we didn't feel it was necessary to give Spillane any relief. But it is one of the only middle schools, but again, we focused on the number of students.
I have another question. This idea of, if there any other communities that have had change as frequently as within, I guess, like if I think about a family and a school career, so let's say you have a kid from pre-K through 12th grade, call it 13 years, any communities that we've seen where they've had to change, if a family moved in, let's say they stayed there 13 years, how many times we would have made the change for them based on zone changes? Is that, say this, are there other communities that have had a change more than twice in a 13-year period?
So Copperfield certainly did.
My neighborhood.
Well, I think Fairfield is a perfect example. Fairfield has been, they initially were zoned to Cy-Fair High School, and then when Cy-Woods opened, they were moved to Cy-Woods, and then when Cypress Ranch opened, they were zoned to Cypress Ranch, and then when Bridgeland opened, they were zoned to Bridgeland. So Fairfield is definitely a development. Again, it's based on the geographical location, and as the development moved out that way, it triggered the shift in their attendance boundary, and again, trying to maintain that community together as much as possible. And as with Stonegate, I believe, again, the changes there, initially, I think at Falls, and then went to Fair, and they remained at Fair for quite some time, and then it wasn't until we opened Bridgeland that we were giving significant relief to Ranch that triggered the change in their attendance zone to Cypress Ranch from Fair to provide students to Cypress Ranch. And we gave Falls significant relief. And I will point out that when we made that boundary recommendation to move students from Cypress Falls to Cypress Ranch, we had a very similar situation at that board meeting with families decked out in their green and gold and lifelong Eagles, and I never want to leave Cypress Falls. So it is, we do understand communities having that loyalty and building that pride in a school, and so we do take that seriously and understand that. But they didn't want to leave Cypress Falls either. It's a great place too.
I have a history of those res codes that I thought I brought with me, but I did not. So, I mean, as much as we could find, dating from originally when we started res codes in Stonegate. So, I'll be glad to share that with you.
And Dr. Blassingame, a number of years ago, while I was still on the board, but I may have been the only one, we did have one of our high schools where the population dipped, and Dr. Henry came to us and said, we really need to send more resources there. And so the resource per student went up, but that was to ensure that they had the same type of full opportunities that their high schools that had multiple portables enjoyed. So we've been sensitive to that in the past, and I'm fairly confident we'll be sensitive to that in the future. But it's an important question to ask, particularly in the public.
Well, I appreciate that you paid attention in the past, and as budget season comes around, I definitely would like to see that reflected as an option in the budget proposed.
Just, Mr. President, from an educational standpoint, I worry about low numbers as much as I do high numbers. So somewhere along the line, I'm not opposed to a pause, but somewhere along the line, this has to be addressed to make sure all kids have equal opportunity.
And Dr. Henry, I agree. That's a question I posed to a high school principal on a campus visit, was because in my opinion as an educator, the smaller numbers, the more personal relationships, the more attention to each student, I think that there's something magical. However, if you cannot give the kids the course selections they need in that, then I think that you're missing, which is better for you to be set up with the endorsement and the pathway you want into your vocational, your college or your career versus, the personalized. I think it's a balancing act, but I definitely know we need to support them to get those options for their endorsements and their course plans.
And to the point that Ms. Heineman made about campuses being overcrowded, my son, the first week of his sophomore year, stood in his math class. There were no desks. But he was not the only one standing for the entire class period. And for Ranch and Bridgeland, they are significantly overcrowded. Something has to be done. And the capacity, as our students will tell us, the capacity is felt most keenly in the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. I remember my son having lunch at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
The cafeterias simply are not built large enough for the number of students when we have a population surge. So there are issues both ways when population drops, but also when it expands.
We have
Ms. Blackshear.
I just wanted to make a few comments because I reread a lot of the emails and the input we've received today. And I will tell you that as I read each one, my heart hurts for those who may be contemplating changes. And having served on this board for 7 years now, I will tell you, this is the one thing that we have to do that I hate most, because I hate having to move students. And I can empathize with you because I wasn't a victim of a school board decision, but back in 1970, I go way back. In 1970, I was a junior becoming a senior, and at that time, I was in HISD, attended John H. Reagan High School, and at that time, to try to promote desegregation, you could attend any school you wanted to. Well, I lived closer to Waltrip High School, but I decided to attend Reagan because that is where my friends from church were going. So I wanted to be with my friends from church. Not necessarily my friends in my neighborhood, but my friends from church. And I was fortunate enough to make a drill team officer that year. And 2 weeks before school started, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decided that no longer would they do things that way. You are assigned to a school, and that is where you'll attend. So you can imagine a senior looking forward to their senior year, and 2 weeks before school starts, not only do I have to change schools, but I have to go to our rival school, which made it all the much worse. My senior year was not what I dreamed of, but as you can see, I survived, and I became a successful person after high school, and it taught me some lessons. But I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes you don't have a choice at all. Like, there was no discussion, no board meetings, no discussion. It was the First Circuit Court of Appeals said, you're going to do this. And I am thankful that we have the opportunity to listen to your input, and we feel your pain. And we want what's best for your student. But as a trustee on this board, we have over 118,000 students that we are responsible for. And so when we're going through this painful process, and I can't explain it any other way than to call it painful, and I think my trustees that serve with me would agree, that at the end of the day, we have to look and make decisions based on what's best for all students. And I think you would agree with me that an overcrowded classroom is not good for your student, or having rotating classrooms because they're overcrowded, and giving the same opportunity to those students in the where they need more students, like Cy Falls and Langham Creek, that we need to, it's a balancing act. I don't know how else to say it. It's a balancing act. And it's not something we choose to do, it's just something that we must do.
Other comments, questions? Mr. Henry.
I have a quick question for you, and certainly not opposed to the pause either. The question is regarding the 299 students that are currently in the red zones we're talking about. You may not have this information tonight, maybe you can get to this later. How would that look 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now? Will that number go up? Will that number go down? Or is it stagnant?
I apologize, which sections are you talking about?
Talking about the Stonegate section. If we were to keep them where they're at, not make a pause, would that number go up? Would that number go down for that in the future
I can tell
as
you.
best for
Okay.
demographics we have?
So Cypress Ranch to Cypress Falls, the first year, like we said, is 127. And then second year would be 227 students going to Cy Falls, then 319. and then 402. And that's worth, now in 26 through 7, that's when all 4 grades are there. And then after that, I show it steady around 375. There's 374, 365, 372, 379, 376. So around 400 students projected.
Thank you.
And I think you can see that reflected if we go back to the 9-year projected high school enrollment slide, slide 51 in your packet. I think you can kind of see how the enrollment, I think with this plan, what we felt best about was that it provided some long-term solutions where I didn't feel like we were going to put the board in a position to have to come back for Bridgeland, Falls, or Ranch. You can see that we get a pretty good stable enrollment on out even Woods with the addition of the Dunham Point development. So you can see that their numbers kind of stabilize as we go out. Now, certainly there are areas with Cypress Park and Cypress Lakes that we will have to come back and look at, but that will be relief that will go towards Cypress Springs. Okay, they can't get to it, sorry. Okay.
So Teresa, if I look at the numbers, and I'm looking at the years 2026 to 2027, and we take the numbers for the Stonegate area of roughly 400 kids, that means that rather than the current projected enrollment at 3727, it would drop to 3448, or approximately 200 kids over capacity
And the year
of 2026, 2027.
26, 27.
And that kind of carrying out per
Yeah.
Christie.
Falls, correct. Falls would be at 3,064 with the addition of the Stonegate versus 2662. Is that what you're saying in 26?
No, I was addressing Cy Ranch
Oh,
at
okay.
currently at 3727 and dropping that if Stonegate were to say, I'm just kind of roughly, what are we talking about here? That would be that approximately 3,400 kids in
Correct.
2026, 2027, or about 200 kids over capacity, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
When we're looking at just the 4-year, not knowing what's going to happen, it ends up being around 600 students relief of Ranch in that period of time. You have some going to Langham, some going to Falls. So, and then along with just whatever their natural growth. And if you can see, Ranch is going back up after that. And ideally, we talk about in our committee, having a high school with 3,200 students. When we didn't have Dunham there, and we had the original plan, it was just not enough relief for Ranch, and it was less than 75 students that were going to be going from, like, Langham to Falls. So we were moving from Ranch to Langham, Langham to Falls, just shifting it, and it didn't accomplish the goals that we had. Okay, and Bridgeland was then up at, if you look at that same year, 26, 27, it's 4212. Not, we have recommended a plan that 922 students move projected out of Bridgeland, and at the same time, 600-ish go out of Ranch. Because if you look at those, you have Ranch at 3727 and Bridgeland at 4200, which,
Yep.
again, and the original point that Julie stated, also needing a high school 13, you can see.
And when we talk about the gradual relief, I think it's important that we make certain that everyone understands how the boundary change impacts at the different levels with siblings and who gets to stay at their current campus. So if you want to fast forward to the boundary transfer recommendations, because I think that may help some families here. I know it's still may impact others, but may make some families feel better.
I'm not going to talk about the, between here and there are the current maps compared to the new recommended maps, so y'all can look at those at your leisure. They'll be obviously on the PowerPoint for families to look at. Okay. Any elementary, let me get to my map. Oh, I can't read from it there. This is a draft of the proposed sibling and boundary transfer rules for elementary and middle. Any elementary school affected by this boundary change who will be in the 5th grade for the 23-24 school year may remain at their current elementary school on a student transfer if their parents provide transportation. For the 23-24 school year and on, if you still have a child there, this transfer opportunity will also be extended to students' siblings if they will be attending the same campus in grades pre-K through 4. Students approved on this transfer option will be permitted to remain at the campus through their 5th grade year, pending the family continues to reside in the attendance zone and their ability to provide transportation. So as long as somebody is going to that school, their siblings below them get to stay and continue going. Okay, we put 23-24 because that's the start of this plan. Okay, likewise for middle school, 7th grade now. Any student affected by this boundary change who will be in the 8th grade for the 23-24 school year may remain at their current middle school on a student transfer if their parents provide transportation. For the starting 23-24, the transfer opportunity will also be extended to a student's siblings if they are attending the same campus in grades 6 and 7. Students approved on this transfer option will be permitted to remain on the campus through their 8th grade year, pending the family continues to reside in the attendance zone and their ability to provide transportation. That, again, I said at the very, very beginning, based on the input we received and requests from the community, it's something that we have. And requests from the board. Julie, I think, did the first time? Oh, yes. There hasn't been any changes in the high school transfer rules. This is only regarding incoming 9th graders. If you are already attending that high school, you get to stay. Only incoming 9th graders, the year of the scheduled boundary change will be required to move to high school in the new attendance zone. Sibling transfers were students who are affected by a high school boundary change who will have an older sibling in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade next year. Attending the affected high school may choose to transfer to their original high school rather than attend the high school designated by the rezoning. The sibling transfer will remain eligible for UL varsity participation, and they'll be allowed to remain until graduation. And transportation for those students would only be for 3 years, as long as there's room on the bus. The way this will be communicated will be through school messenger, phone calls, emails, and text messages, district and campus websites, and campus newsletters. The input link is...
Christy, just to clarify, that communication will go to all families that participate in School Messenger, not just the one. Who will that communication go to?
Leslie? Everyone.
Okay.
I want to make sure it wasn't just the schools affected by the recommendation.
And this presentation that you shared tonight will also be on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we're ready for final questions.
Oh, yes.
Looking to my left.
I think we need to give the administration some clear direction on what should be posted on the website and shared with the community.
I agree. So tonight is not a night for taking a vote, but I did hear from several colleagues that we would like to see what does a pause look like.
You're referring to relieving ranch. Is it only the Stonegate portion? So you want to see the numbers pausing just the Stonegate portion?
Correct. Yes.
There were two moves involved with Ranch, Stonegate, and then the,
Langham. But they said move
Okay.
forward with the Langham, but not the Falls. Is
Per-
it-
That's
correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just to clarify too, you asked the question, I don't know if you got the answer, just the Stonegate part of Cy Ranch, but not the Bridge Creek part of Cy Ranch, is what I've
Okay,
heard.
and I should have clarified, I was referring to the Ranch to Falls, two sections.
Yes.
Correct.
The Stonegate, and the other ones are Canyon Lakes at Stonegate, the three that would be going to Langham.
Yeah.
So the other one is a relief for Bridgeland.
Correct, and that's.
So that's
Correct.
the Avalon and Bridge Creek. That is moving to Ranch.
Correct.
Correct.
So you want to pause on the
Stonegate
Stonegate
to
to
Falls.
Falls. What about the Bridge Creek, Avalon?
and what about Cy Ranch to Langham
They
Creek?
said to move forward with that one.
Move forward with that.
Yep.
Pause Stonegate to Falls. You're just talking about us to get the data and show the numbers at the next board meeting?
Correct.
Well, actually, we
No,
want to see
before.
them before the next
Before.
board meeting.
Of course,
So that we can vote.
yes. It's
Yes.
tomorrow morning, Suna?
Yes.
Well, at least by noontime, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So pause Stonegate to Falls and pause Bridge Creek to Ranch?
No, I think we still have to move with
Yeah.
Bridge Creek to Ranch.
Okay.
So
I
we're
think we
keeping
do.
Bridge Creek, all
Okay.
changes for Bridge Creek continue.
All right, so this is Stonegate to Falls.
And
think
just
that
for
makes sense
clarity,
for us
that's because of
feeder.
the feeder pattern.
Pattern, right. Yep. Look at that, we're on the
Any-
same.
There you go.
Andy, other directions?
No, I believe that's it. So this is not the time for public to ask questions.
If you send us an email, I'll be happy to answer your question.
Okay, ma'am, I'm so sorry. We are not taking comments from, or questions from the audience. But you're welcome to contact administrators directly or talk after the meeting.
And I would mention the observation that the reason why I asked for a pause is not so much that so many people came out and said they did not want to move Ranch. I was very concerned when I heard a little pushback from one subdivision, one community, toward another community. As board members, we deserve the pushback, right? That's why we're here. But I don't know that our neighbors deserve the pushback. Everybody is passionate about their own household and their own neighborhood. So if there's pushback, let us have it. But please do not direct it at any neighbors within the school district. That's our job, to receive the concern. And that's why we're here. And so that's the reason why I asked for the pause. Because there's no doubt that this decision, even if we pause it, will still have to be made. Now, changes can still happen in a year, and we don't know what the economy is going to do in a year, but we do know that the population is there, and the population has to be dealt with in an appropriate fashion. So that concludes my comments. I know everybody's surprised that I can stop talking.
I do have one comment. Christy, when you bring us back the numbers, could you provide percentages in addition to the raw numbers?
Percent utilization?
Yes.
Sure.
Holly, I no longer need the revised one, correct?
Someone
Thank
asked
you.
for the history of those Stonegate res codes. Dr. Blasingham, you want those?
Yes, please.
Before we continue with the, what I'll call the business portion, the nuts and bolts, I'm going to ask for a 5-minute break. All of our patrons who are here, who came to talk about and listen to rezoning, you're welcome to stay as we take a look at contracts. But if you want to leave at this time, that's okay too. What we will be doing from here on out is, starting with agenda item 3C, we're looking at contracts. At the tail end, we will look at the calendar. But a 5-minute break.
were actually posed like a good soldier.
So our 5 minutes was up 3 minutes ago. So if all board members would return to the board dais, I'm not calling anybody's name. So that pause is over with. I hope it was the pause that refreshes. We'll see. Item 3C, the board will consider adopting a revision to the compensation plan to increase the lifeguard pay rate. Any questions? Looking to my right, looking to my left. May we move that to the consent agenda, Holly? Thank you. 3D, the board will consider approving the calendar committee's recommendation for the 2023-2024 instructional calendar. There are no speakers this evening. We do have a presenter, Dr. Ashley Claiborne. If you would, please.
President Jackson, Board of Trustees, Dr. Henry. Tonight, we will share with you the district's instructional calendar committee recommendation for the 2023-24 school year. In December of 2022, we convened the District Instructional Calendar Committee. Before you now are the groups represented on the committee, comprised of stakeholders that represent our entire community. The committee members were selected based on those that applied through the district's committee application process. The majority of the members were teachers, followed by parents, community, and business partners. At this time, if we have any committee members here tonight, please stand so that we may recognize you. Thank you. Yes. I know we also have members watching from home, and we want to thank these individuals for serving on the committee and providing us with a great recommendation for the board. We also took the proposed calendar to our district-wide Educational Improvement Council, who advised the board and superintendent on education-related matters. And they also support the calendar we're proposing this evening. The committee's priority and main purpose is to recommend to the school board an instructional calendar based on what is instructionally best for students. The Texas Education Code requires school district calendars to have a minimum of 75,600 minutes for students, including lunch, recess, and intermissions, 187 days for teachers, and clearly identified inclement weather days. Additionally, school may begin no earlier than the fourth Monday in August, and it may end no earlier than May the 15th. We also have a set of Cypress-Fairbanks ISD instructional calendar parameters that help guide the committee. These include doing what is instructionally best for students, following the state law, balancing the fall and spring semesters, and sometimes it seems like the spring semester has more days, and it does, but a lot of those days are reserved for state testing. We also look to determine appropriate timing for professional development days. We want to make sure that we include 445 minutes per instructional day. We note state assessment days and not scheduling holidays on those days, and keeping in mind that short weeks result in lower attendance on instructional days. The committee also considers including minutes in the calendar for inclement weather days. The proposed calendar has 2 inclement weather days built in, meaning that if there were 2 weather events where we had to miss school, we would not have to make those days up because they're already built into the calendar. We're also mindful of surrounding school district calendars, and we accomplish this goal by sharing information with other Region 4 districts and Lone Star College. We want to make sure that we include holidays and breaks that are important to our community, and we also keep in mind scheduling of summer programs. Now let's take a look at the proposed calendar. Beginning in August, once again, we would have 2 weeks for professional development that count toward a teacher's 187-day contract. The first day of school would begin on August the 28th, the fourth Monday in August. Looking at September, September 4th would be a Labor Day holiday, and the 25th would be a teacher workday and student holiday. If you'll recall, we began including these days on the instructional calendar in the 2020-21 school year to provide teachers with the opportunity to plan and prepare as they work toward closing the achievement gaps created by COVID-19. October 16th would also be a teacher workday and a student holiday. Looking at November, the 6th and the 7th would be professional development days for teachers and student holidays. Due to the fact that November 7th is Election Day and many of our campuses are used as polling sites. The week of November 20th would be for the Thanksgiving break. Let's take a look at December and January together. This year, the committee proposes the winter break begin on December 22nd due to New Year's Day falling on a Monday. Therefore, the break would last from December 22nd to January 4th for teachers, with the professional development day on January the 5th, and December 22nd to January 5th for students. A similar calendar was adopted by the board for the 17-18 school year. This proposal will also provide students 4 additional instructional days in the first semester. January 15th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. February 16th would be a teacher workday and a student holiday. And February 19th would be a teacher professional day, a student holiday, as well as an inclement weather day. The week of March the 11th would be spring break, which does align with Lone Star College and surrounding districts. And then March the 29th is Good Friday. April 15th would be a teacher workday and a student holiday, as well as an inclement weather day. May the 27th would be Memorial Day, a holiday for everyone. And then the last day of school for students would be on May the 31st. June the 3rd is the 187th day of the teacher contract and a professional development day. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have on the committee's recommendations.
Let me look to the right. No questions. Looking to the left.
I have one question.
Mr. Scanlon.
Did the committee provide feedback on the winter break starting on the 22nd for students? Was there a discussion around that week? Just because it's happening a little bit close to Christmas.
Yes, there was discussion around that at all of our committee members had the opportunity to provide impact on that very thing. And then we went around and we voted, and the committee came to a consensus that that was what the recommendation would be.
Okay. I've had a lot of feedback from the community on that specific date as they've digested the calendar.
Right, and you know, one of the reasons that we felt like we needed to do that was due to the fact that January 1st was on a Monday.
Yeah.
And then if we had a professional development day on Tuesday and then kids came back on Wednesday, we felt like we would have low attendance that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Okay. And Dr. Henry, I'm guessing that low attendance question mark is something that you've learned, the district's learned over years of experience.
Yes, sir. Anytime you have a partial week, you're going to struggle with attendance, and by partial week, I mean like 3 days or less.
Yeah.
It causes a real problem, financial problem.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
And one other thing is that when we extend the week and have the Friday off, we have additional instructional days for students during that week. So that extends that, especially for our high schools, they have additional, well, everyone, but they have 4 additional instructional days within that fall semester.
Yep, I understand. So just to rephrase it for the community that may be listening, so by extending that full week in January, it allows us, it prevents low attendance, which would create financial impact for the district.
That is correct. That is one reason, yes.
Okay.
Ms. Blackshear.
just a comment that I'm glad that we continue to close schools on Election Day. Thank you very much for doing that. And I think it works out perfect with the teacher work day on the day before and a 4-day weekend for students. I know some students are looking forward to their 4-day weekend coming up.
Ms. Heineman?
Just Mr. Jackson, so I can address Ms. Blackshear. And the reason we did that was primarily a safety issue. Just having so many strangers on the campus.
That's why I want it.
So I just want the public to know why we do that.
Well, and we didn't always used to do that. I would give a shout out to my colleague, Ms. Blackshear. She raised that issue. And as it turned out, although as a board, and I encouraged her to go ahead and make it as a resolution, and that year you decided not to. I thought you had the votes. I knew you had 3 votes, and I figured you'd pick up one more the longer we talked about it. We chose not to make that change, and we chose to keep elections on campus. But it just became more problematical to try and hold school while we were having elections. And so we made that change very, very quickly thereafter. But I do appreciate the fact that you brought it up, and it shows that something as simple as a trustee question can, in fact, have an impact for change that's very positive. So may we move this to consent? Looking to the right. Holly, please move this to the consent calendar. Okay, item 3E, the board will consider approving the issuance of career and technical education CTE teaching permit to Joshua Greisman in lieu of standard teaching certifications as established in law. Let me turn to my left. Any questions? Looking to the left? None to the right? There are none. May we move this to consent agenda? Holly? Thank you. Item 3F, the board will consider approving construction proposals and contracts paid from bond funds to the recommended contractors and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts as follows. 3F1, 2022 Holbrook, Holmesley, and Lee Elementary School renovations. I'm going to take presidential privilege and ask my questions first, and that's because I have some very uncomfortable questions, but they have to be asked. And if somebody asks an uncomfortable question, it might as well be me. So, Mr. Morgan, I noticed we only had 2 contractors and one appeared to pull out. Why did we not reopen the bidding process? Why did they pull out?
Why did they? Well, the reason that one of the contractors pulled out, they missed a number in their proposal. So had we awarded the contract, they would have had to avoid the contract. They couldn't afford to do the work. And
so it was not as if that they found constraints of the bidding process to be onerous.
Oh, no, sir. So we, just to give you a little background on this, we had 5 contractors pull plans for this job. We were surprised we only received bids for 2. We did go back and survey the other contractors to find out why they didn't submit a bid. Most of it was labor issues. They couldn't field a team. They didn't get good responses from their subs, or they were chasing other work in other districts.
Why did we not reopen the bidding process?
We considered reopening the bidding process, but under the current market conditions, we're not convinced we're going to get better pricing. The contractor that we're recommending is a reputable contractor. The price that they proposed is within our proposed construction cost. So I think that if we put it back out in the current market conditions, even if we split it, we probably would come with higher bids than we have right now.
Are construction costs going up or are they going down?
They're starting to stabilize. Over the last couple of years, they have gone up significantly, though.
So you also answered one of the questions I was going to ask. Would we have different answers if we split this into smaller packages?
We could split it into smaller packages, but then we'd have general conditions and overhead for 2 smaller packages, which we feel would drive the price up.
Has it ever happened before that on a significant construction contract that we wound up with only one bidder?
Mr. Sprague and I were talking about that earlier. We've had big contracts where we've received 2 proposals. We've had big contracts where we've had a vendor or a contractor that had to withdraw their proposal. I don't know that I can remember a situation where we've had 2 proposals and then one contractor pull their proposal.
My time on the board, I have seen one contractor. We wound up with multiple bids, but we did have one contractor who pulled their proposal. And the problem was that they had merely, well, I can't speak for them. They may have believed that they misbid.
Yes, sir.
So those were the uncomfortable questions that had to be asked. I'll now open up to my board. If they have other questions, let me look to the right. And let me look to the left. Dr. Henry, you have a question.
Not a question, just want to ask Mr. Sprague just to comment on it. This work is being done by the 2019 bond program. What's our status there? Are we still projected to achieve everything that we told the voters that we would achieve?
Yes, sir. Based on the dollars that we've seen so far and the contracts that the board has awarded, we still feel very comfortable that we will hit the finish line. Now, if the rates go up any higher than what we're seeing, we might run into snag towards the end of the bond program. But right now, based on the current market conditions and the pricing we're seeing, we feel pretty good that we will hit the finish line and finish all the projects that we promised the voters.
And Dr. Henry, thank you for asking that. As we proceed in using bond funds, it's always important that we take a look at what I call percentage of completion on the contracts. So I appreciate your asking that question. I'll give you temporary trustee prerogative, but it won't last long. So to my standard questions, do we have any concern about flooding situations on these, detention or retention considerations?
No, sir. We don't have, none of these properties flooded during Harvey. Where we are doing civil work, we are adding additional detention. If you look at Holbrook, we are doing a parent drive that pulls the traffic off Langfield Road. So we're doing a lot of detention on the Holbrook side just to accommodate the additional civil work.
Very good. Thank you. May we move this to the consent agenda? It's okay to the right, to the left. Holly, if you would, go ahead and put this on the consent agenda.
Could I just add one other thing related to that
Yes,
agenda
sir.
item? Going back to the 2014 bond and the 2019 bond, if you added those two together, we told the voters that we could possibly go up 9.5 cents total on our tax rate. And I believe, Karen, we've gone down a penny? Correct. So we've done all of that work and actually gone down on the tax rate, so I think that's important.
Well, it is important to keep our promise to our taxpayers. Absolutely. Item 3G, the board will consider awarding bids and contracts and/or authorizing purchase orders as recommended in the posted agenda item. Just two of them. 3G1 banquet chairs for the Berry Center, 3G2 school bus driving simulator barrage simulation. No speakers on this topic this evening. I'm a little surprised. Looking to my right, questions? Looking to my left. Well, these are hot topics, Dr. Henry.
I did ask what Virage was today in our meeting before, but that's a brand name apparently.
So to the board, maybe we move this to the consent agenda. Holly, if you would, please, that's item 3G. 3H, the board will consider approving a donation agreement between Cypress-Fairbanks ISD and the Yorkwood Civic Club for the donation of land to construct a cul-de-sac for the purpose of addressing traffic issues at Holbrook Elementary School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. A donation agreement involving a civic club. Let me turn to my left. Any questions? None to my right. So Roy or Matt, please explain what this is all about and why do we want this?
Dan Gross is going to do this.
Or Dan?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, throughout many years at Holbrook Elementary, we have had just totally terrible traffic issues. We have upwards of 14 regular ed buses, 4 special ed buses, 4 daycare vans, and upwards of 90 to 100 car riders. Their point of access is only off of Langfield, and that's a linear footage of about 450 linear feet of right-of-way with 3 driveways that come in and out. Little bit of history to it. Throughout the years, we've worked with Becky Mendez and school leadership with Christina and Kane Smith and transportation to come up with operational changes. As of March 2021, we pretty much exhausted all that, and we realized that we need to do something drastic. One of the challenges with Holbrook, obviously, is that it's landlocked because of Langfield being at the front of the campus. So we saw that it was going to need something very drastic in the sense of how we design new campuses. So one opportunity that Holbrook has is it does have a right-of-way that touches the backside of the campus. That's part of what this donation agreement is. We had a tremendous team working on this with IBI architects, their engineers, traffic engineers, the campus, and everybody. But it was a step-by-step process to find a way that we could bring traffic on the backside. Came up with tons of options, but what was best and ultimately for the district, for parents, for students, for safety, and for the neighborhood, because car riders are stacking within their neighborhood, was basically to create an access point on the backside off of Pine Bark. And to do that, we needed City of Houston buy-in, so to speak, to establish a cul-de-sac. They have existing right-of-way that extends from Pine Bark upwards. There's no indication we have that that's going to be developed in the near future, but they were on board with us proposing construction of a cul-de-sac and an additional drive entry into the campus. So to create that cul-de-sac, donation agreement with Yorkwood Civic Club was important. The city already has their right-of-way that's established, and then obviously we're going to have to give part of our property for that right-of-way as well. Reached out to the Yorkwood Civic Club, had great dialogue. There's no way we could have solved it without them. There were times where the dialogue was a little bit spirited, but it all came back to collaboration. So in a nutshell, that's the reason for the donation and why it's important for what's going to be the best long-term solution for the campus and the neighborhood.
Good summary. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jackson, I just want to commend Dan because he took the ball and ran with this and developed that solution with our team and wouldn't give up in trying to find a solution to how we can solve the traffic issue. So I just want to give Dan a good shout out for the effort he made on this on behalf of the district.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. It was truly a team effort. Thank you.
Mr. Sarabia.
Yes, Dan, the same thing here. I myself had been at the school a couple of times during the to observe the traffic jumbo, if you want to call it that. And I had, talked with some of the personnel here, and y'all were very aware of it, and y'all did an excellent job of listening and not just putting it to the side. Y'all, with time, it'll work out, and y'all did a great job because I don't know how they do it there. I think Chief Mendez even had extra personnel there when he could to help with the unloading of the kids, and because they are blocked in there with the main road that has just outgrown its existence when it was built years ago and stuff. But on behalf of the Holbrook community, they'll be so glad to hear of the impending news, though. Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. And what we hope for, just one additional item, is in the future, we want to bring Yorkwood Civic Club here for the recognition of collaboration. So we'll work toward that as well.
Very definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So So that was moved to the consent agenda. Item 3I, the board will consider approving the granting of a water meter easement to the Barker Cypress Municipal Utility District for water service to Metcalf Elementary School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Any questions? Looking to my left, looking to my right. May we move this to the consent agenda? Looking to my right and to the left. Holly, please place this on the consent agenda.
Mr. President, just
Yes,
a
sir.
quick deal, and I may have just missed it. Did we move 3H to consent also?
We did.
Okay. Ms. Heineman missed that, so.
Okay.
Throw her under the bus. Here goes the bus.
Well, let's see. I missed 5 speakers tonight, and one of my colleagues missed an agenda item, so I'm still winning. I'm up 5-1. 3J, the board will consider approving the granting of a water meter easement to Harris County Municipal Utility District Number 264 for water service to Holmesley Elementary School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. To the right, no questions. To the left. Roy, why do we need a water meter easement?
We're needing additional service at the campus with some of the renovations and stuff we're doing. So in order to do that, to bring the additional service, we'll bring another meter in.
And is that for construction or is that for expansion of the school?
It's a construction. It has to do with our wall segmentation project that we're doing.
I had the opportunity of touring that campus and seeing the construction as it was in process. So I knew that this was coming up. May we move 3J to the consent agenda? Holly, if you would, please. 3K, the board will consider making a determination that good cause did not exist as required by law for Dana Beard, Kaylee Cutbirth, Christine Denman, Ashley Fletcher, Daryl Frederick, Chloe Henson, Zachary Herbst, Jillian Mitchell, Jordan Packman, and Rochelle Smith to resign their respective employment contracts. This item may be discussed in closed session pursuant to Section 551.074. This item is set up for Monday on closed session. Is my understanding of the agenda correct, or will we go into closed session tonight?
Tonight's Monday.
Tonight is Monday.
All right, Tom?
Okay.
6-1.
6-1. We will be going into closed session on this item. There are no speakers this evening on this item 3L. The board will consider giving notice to Yakira Dean that her employment with the district under a probationary contract has been terminated. This item may also be discussed in closed session pursuant to 551.074. That would be Monday closed session. That must be tonight for 3L. Before we move to closed session, I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight. I would also like to thank those who are watching from home. May I have a motion, Mr. Secretary, if you're ready, to move into closed session on agenda item 3K and 3L?
So moved.
The motion has been made by Mr. Scanlon. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And the motion has been seconded by Dr. Blassingame. Thank you. We will now move to closed session. When we come out of closed session, we will not take any action other than we reconvene in open session and we close the meeting accordingly. I want to thank everybody for being here.